Right, so what is it about breakfast again? What are we having for breakfast?
Oh, we live?
Yeah, we're live.
I was just sitting there with my, hello, welcome, internet.
Your what?
We're here.
Hold on. I'm just going to scooch over a little bit.
Look at this. We're 3 minutes early. Look at that.
We're 3 minutes early. I was caught off guard. Hello, look at this.
Who are we?
Well, somebody in the chat, I think it was Retro Sean, friend of the show, Retro Sean, was like, this is the official grand opening. I guess the other openings have been soft openings, according to Retro Sean.
This is the hard opening?
This is the hard opening. The hard, we like to make things hard on ourselves, for sure. You got to mute yourself. God,
I apologize, sir.
Rookie move.
I know.
Look at this. We're here.
Always
we're here
calling people out.
We're here to talk about the PC. We're here to talk about eating on stream.
We love
to talk about food.
You know the proper way to drink coffee, right? You do a good slurp, right?
Is it like ramen noodles? How the louder the slurp, the more you're enjoying it.
That's a respect thing. This is about taste.
Oh, okay.
Get on his level, Adam.
Yeah,
jeez.
I am, man. I've been put in my place. Look at this. Firm stinky tofu opening. Yes.
yes, I'm down for that.
That doesn't sound appealing when you describe it in such terms.
Guess what? It's not appealing.
Can you fry it? And I love the pressed fried tofu.
That's the fried is what I had at the night markets. I don't know what is more traditional, fried or stewed.
I want to say fried.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Fried makes it way more pungent. I love it. Love it. And then somebody over on Discord, we were talking about my love for Coke Fiber, which we didn't bring up. We should have brought up on Tech Pod. How did we not talk about Coke Fiber? We were talking about Computex, and I didn't bring that up.
I didn't want to get into those details.
Yeah, well, being honest. Coke Fiber is awesome, but then somebody was saying, "Hey, I think it was Ziv. Maybe he was talking about sprinkling some, making your own version of it." Because it's just maltodextrin or something like that. I don't know.
I love
it's chemicals.
You're just gonna mix Metamucil into your.
Well, but then they were talking about, hey, maybe that's what I do for when we do our predictions episode, and I sprinkle random stuff inside of a Coke and make my own Coke flavors.
And then you have a time limit on the episode.
You just keep adding Metamucil, so it just gets thicker and thicker as you get wrong.
No, you don't want to do that. Yeah, I've done that. You don't want to do that.
Do you think when the Metamucil hits the carbonated beverage, it's going to be like Mentos, where it has all the microservices for the bubbles to hit to, and it's just going to explode?
I don't think so. I don't think maltodextrin does that.
I'm going to go get some. I'll be back in a few minutes.
Yeah. No, we should try this.
Some science.
Yeah, and then Mr. Meow asked some very important questions. You know what? Let's save that for the intro.
Okay.
Because I do want to answer that question. A lot of people have been assuming stuff.
Is it Al's fault?
Yeah. Al.
But also got Coffee asking why not 4K yet. Why not, Adam?
We're in 1440p. We can we've only got 1440 of those P's lined up over on the computer over there. So to add another extra, quick math, how many 2160 minus 1440?
Lots of P's.
Yeah, 736.
Too many to count.
There we go. Yes, to add those extra P's is going to require us to maybe do something different. I don't know. I actually why. We had some we were doing it in 4K, but we were having some internet issues or something.
Couldn't handle it, right?
No, I mean they could. Yeah, I can't remember. I mean we could.
We'll get there one day. Don't worry. It's not 720.
It's been holding at 1440p's pretty well. Wait, is that people were arguing about like 2K versus Gordon?
I hate that term.
Yeah, Gordon would call it 25 by 14. That's how Gordon would describe 1440p.
You mean 2.5K?
No. Yeah. Anyway.
Why? This has always been a problem. This is literally from the dawn of the PC age. This thing where we don't call the resolutions a unified. Like some people,
there is a unified. There is a standard way to describe the resolutions. Is nobody wants to remember all those those acronym letters.
But it's also the TV people use a different thing than the monitor people, and like it's just always sucks.
And then ultra wide.
How are we supposed to self-identify or immediately identify what tribe we belong to, though? Will
I don't belong to any tribes. I live outside of all tribes.
Oh, you're a nomad. Okay,
yeah, I walk on my own.
You're weird.
What? And you're not in
so
Gordon's
judgy.
19 by 10 tribe?
Look,
no.
I'm on team.
That's not a tribe. That's Gordon by himself.
I'm on team 2560 by 1600.
Okay.
That's where I live.
Yeah.
That was
the way we do it. I am in charge of how people write things on PCWorld, and I say we can say 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. Anything else, just spell it out, man.
Yeah.
Somebody found something that said like UWQHD, and I'm like, I think I can figure this out, but I do this for a living, and I don't want to figure this out. Just write what it is.
What are you also in charge of whether yes or no's for Oxford commas, Brad, or is that someone else?
No, that
The
falls
answer
on
is
Elena.
yes.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Okay, I can stay.
It would not work
keep
for
working
Brad
here.
if he was not a fan of the Oxford comma.
Good to know.
Actually,
I
yeah,
need to go get my sweatshirt.
yeah, she literally has a sweatshirt. Oh man, I think it was my boss. She edited something that I wrote as part of an internal thing, and she took the comma out. Yeah, and I was like, oh, interesting. Okay, that's how they do it on the B2B side, I guess.
The sweatshirt is on deck.
It's the AP style. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. It's very good.
TFN Oxford comma for the win. All right, cool. We're here to talk about the PC,
The personal computer?
the personal computer,
Wow.
the business computer, the enterprise computer, whatever. There's different kinds of computers out there. The handheld computer. We can talk about all of them.
The game development computer. That was a cool video y'all did the other day. I just watched.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to make a benchmark, the video game making benchmark instead of a video game playing benchmark for once.
Yeah, it was super cool to watch. I loved it.
It's fun. So yeah, we're talking about some fun stuff. I'm going to be filling in hosting, but Gordon might pop in. Might just pop out of the woodwork a little bit later. So
wherever he's needed, that's
yeah.
where he'll be.
Yeah. It's like it's like the candy man. You don't want to say his name 3 times.
He's probably getting fireworks ready, for the week.
That's what it is.
All
Yeah.
right, we gotta it's an American tradition. We gotta blow some stuff up.
He's
Yeah.
drilling holes in watermelons and filling them with booze. All the great American hits.
Yeah. Daedus makes a good point. We don't talk about the PC. It's personal. Okay.
Hey.
Apologies, my bad.
It's personal. We don't talk about it. All right. Yeah, we're going to talk about FSR 3.1. It's officially out, and then what the rest of the year looks like, including what we know, what is rumored to know, and what maybe we hope comes out. So it'll be fun. Yeah, America explosions.
I don't know
there.
anything about this. You're going to get my straight reaction to rumors for this
Yeah.
Same.
chat.
Hey,
Same.
listen, we're not going to go deep into rumors. There are some, there's different levels of rumors. There are the rumors that are just literally thrown out, and then there are some that are like, that seems
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I love that we moved to a new channel. All of a sudden, it's a rumor cast. Like that's all we're doing over here. Rumors
Yeah.
24/7.
exactly.
Over here
Oh
at
yeah,
Full
Brad,
Nerd.
did you not know? This is the new rumor channel.
Oh, also happy belated Canada Day.
Oh, Canada Day.
That was
Yeah.
yesterday.
Oh, they tried to get the leg up on America Day, I guess. So they're
Well.
like, look at us.
I had a friend leave me a audio message, so it like had extra impact. Where he's like, "So, me and my housemates had a free day, so we decided to go to Canada because we're so close. We realized that was a bad decision because apparently today is Canada Day." I was like, "Haha."
Yeah. Spoilers,
All the
yeah.
Canadians have to come home.
Also, there is a rumor going around. We're not going to address it. That Willis secretly works for Gamers Nexus. We're not
What?
going to address those rumors. Here.
What?
Yeah.
I don't even know how that came about. I also need Steve, if you're watching this, I need my paycheck right now. Just
Yeah,
FYI.
we're gonna have to talk about this, Willis, offline. I'm not going to address those rumors. Yeah.
Of all the people I expected to be on the take, never would I have thought Willis would be the one.
Look at his
Seriously?
beady eyes over
He's
there.
so happy about
Yeah, look
himself.
at those eyes. Yeah, he's.
Are you
he's
being
got a big
racist,
smile.
Adam?
No. What, is beady eyes a racist term?
no.
No. I said,
Oh no.
no. You know what? Maybe we should call up Steve. I don't even think Steve knows about this either. Anyway, let's get going. All the hamsters running
All the
in the
hamsters
cages.
running,
They're not too
yeah.
hot yet, even though it's how many Celsius out? It's 42. Is that?
It was nice when I came in.
Oh,
Like
not bad
75
today.
Fahrenheit,
Yeah,
American
yeah.
numbers.
Yeah, it's gonna be hot.
Good day not to be wearing pants on the podcast here in New Hampshire. though.
Spoilers. I'm not wearing
I'm not
pants
wearing
either.
pants.
Yeah, actually, we're all
Wow.
not wearing pants.
Yeah, it's a shin cast over
Yeah,
here.
yeah, we're really showing off our legs.
Happy
around
shorts
here.
day. It's let's see. So the weather says it's 23°C in the bay here. Yeah, in the city here.
Y'all just shocking the Victorians,
23C that just seems like that feels nice. 23C. I don't know.
No.
I don't know. My
I
brain doesn't
prefer
work
17.
like that. Yeah. Okay.
And Elena, my ankles are covered. I hope you know I'm wearing modesty socks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know what? It's important to be proper at all times.
Of course.
I don't know.
Cross at the ankles.
Those are still pretty pretty low ankle socks.
I was
Boom,
told by my
profit.
daughter that I'm not allowed to wear no-shows anymore because that's an old person thing.
You know, I've noticed that. I feel like it's come
so
full circle now.
weird.
Because when I was in high school in the late '90s, you don't wear like full socks.
Like,
Are you kidding? Like
3 years
Yeah, like
ago.
showing the tube socks, like you don't
Yeah.
do that, but they're doing it now,
Now
like
they're- yeah.
unironically, and I'm like, what is
And they pull
happening?
them up.
It's
They
back-
pull them
They
up.
do.
It's not like they're scrunching down or anything. They pull them up. Like I saw a kid the other day with socks over their knees, and they weren't like leggings or like knee-high stockings or anything. They were socks. It's like
Yeah.
you were
Up
doing
to
this
the
wrong.
knee. Up to the knee.
I don't know. I was like, if I did that when I was your age, they'd come over and like give me a wedgie. You know?
Put your
that's
head
a-
right in the
Yeah,
toilet.
yeah,
Face
right
first in the
toilet.
trash can.
Oh my god, you nerd, you
Nerds.
nerd, you geek, you dork. All right,
All right, go ahead.
we're all geeks here. We're all
We're
nerds.
all
We're the
geeks.
full nerd.
We
Never
are.
go full nerd. All right, cool. We ready?
Ready.
Let me bring up the notes. I wrote it.
You touched
it's
the
right
screen.
here.
That's really nice. You can do
Yeah.
that.
Hey, you can do
Yeah.
that.
cool.
This laptop has AI inside it. By the way, they figured out a way to
Oh.
put it inside
Sorry,
the
tops.
laptop.
The flops are later.
Oh yeah, floppy and toppy. My best friends. In this episode of the Full Nerd, we talk FSR 3.1 and the second half. It's just,
10 out of 10.
Oh yeah,
Perfect.
that was
Nailed it.
way
Let's
too
roll on.
wordy. I was just
Channeling
like chewing.
Gordon today.
All right, I'm gonna simplify that. In this episode of the Full Nerd, we talk FSR 3.1 and the second half of the year hardware predictions. It's not really prediction, but it's just expectation. Wrong word. Welcome, everybody, to episode 307 of the Full Nerd, PC World's premier podcast about PC hardware and PC building. I am your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray, joined today on the line by the head honcho of PC World himself, Brad Charkis. Hello, Brad.
Hello, Internet. Hello, Adam.
Yeah. Also on the line is Elena Yee, our Deals Ninja.
Hello.
Do you still refer yourself as the Deals Ninja?
I mean, I think that was always you referring to me as that.
Okay, well, there you go. I will continue to refer you to that. And then sitting next to me at the table is William Smith. Do you ever go by William? Is William
Never once.
your actual first name?
No, that's not my actual first name.
Oh, it's just Will.
My actual first name is something completely different.
Oh.
I'm a middle name guy. I'm from
Oh.
the South, and I'm a third.
Oh, okay, well then I'm going to take that back. Sitting next to me at the table is Will Smith.
Just some guy.
Just some
Turns
guy.
out. Hi.
Just some
Well,
guy.
it's good to be here.
He's here. The developer relations Will Smith.
That is the thing I do.
And controlling the verticals and horizontals, both of them at the same time, sometimes separately, is Willis Lai.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I've been called Wallace before. Or
I can see.
I don't
I
mean
can,
to-
yeah, I can
I'm
see
a
getting
Wallace.
a Wallace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
do I look like a Wallace? Do I look like a Wallace here?
I could see a Wallace. A lot of people see my last name. The amount of times that I've been called Murphy.
Murphy.
You look like a Murphy.
Well, because you got the MU.
Adam Patrick.
yeah.
Yeah, well, no, actually, yeah, I go by my full name, and a lot of people call me Patrick because they see that as the second word, and then they'll say and then they'll say Murphy because they just see the MU and Y at the end.
So
or MURY. So it's close. It's Murray and
I can
Murphy
see
are
it,
close, but yeah, I get Murphy all the time, and I'm like, oh, okay.
does anybody ever hit you with an Adam Patrick? Like you're a two first names person?
No,
No.
it's usually Adam or Patrick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
So yeah. Anyway, we're not here to talk about names. We're here to talk about PC hardware specifically. That's what this podcast covers. If you don't know, if you're new here, if today is your first day, then welcome. We're here to talk about the computer. You've joined the right place. But a lot of people have been with us for a long time, and a lot of people are coming over from the PC World channel, and which I put up a video last week or. Actually, yeah, I made the video last week and put it up yesterday saying, "Hey, the Full Nerd is on a new channel. Come check us out." There was a lot of more questions than I expected.
I saw.
Yeah, I was surprised. Everything from we're money grubbing people, just trying
That's
to
weird.
game the algorithm. I was like, oh, okay.
You do get more money with more channels. That is science, I believe.
I guess.
1 + 1 = 2.
Splitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Double the channels, double the viewers, right?
But I mean, it is a legit question. I feel like I've talked about it here, but maybe I didn't talk about it enough. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why we're doing this. But at the end of the day, the idea is to have a distinct identity between the PC World channel and content and the Full Nerd podcast, which, yes, there's overlap. It's all the PC, but they are we do have two different missions. The Full Nerd is a podcast about, mostly DIY desktop hardware kind of stuff. I mean, we talk about other stuff as well, and focus on news and trends and things like that, where the actual PC World channel is a little bit different. I mean, we do a lot of laptop stuff over there. We do some gaming stuff. It's a lot of how-to based content. And then, some people might not know this, but the actual PC World site itself is actually even different in terms of some of the content. Yes, it's all together. We're all part of the same grouping, but we all kind of have different lanes a little bit.
We also even still have a digital magazine that is totally different from the website and the YouTube channel. So just like to meet people where they're at.
Yeah. So we started the Full Nerd in 2016, and it was very much a skunkworks effort to say, hey, we're Gordon wants to do this podcast. Let's do this podcast. I used to love listening to the Maximum PC No BS podcast. I get to produce one with Gordon. Hell yeah, I'm all about it. So we started it and we put it on the PC World channel. I mean, the Full Nerd is a sub brand of PC World, but it was always meant to be a separate brand, right? Like we actually did have, and I was telling you this earlier, we did have the PC World show, which was a completely separate podcast, which was a little bit more indicative of PC World content. So the Full Nerd was always meant to be kind of like an even separate thing.
The niche of the niche.
Yeah. So, and it even like a couple years into it. So I actually looked at the stats when we were filling out this new Full Nerd podcast channel. I actually created this channel in 2018.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because if you go to
with the long-term plans.
Yeah, no, well, because I knew it was always a separate thing, but to tell you the truth, like when we started it, I wasn't in charge of the team at that point. I was just pretty much a shooter editor kind of thing. So we just kind of did it. But I knew at some point we needed to peel off that Band-Aid. And I guess that was 2018 was maybe the early indications. I was like, I'm going to park on this because at some point we need to do it. And really that inflection point was episode 300. I think between that and other stuff going on, it was just like, hey, now's the time. Let's do it. Let's put it on its own. And so, yeah, I don't know. Well, that's where we're here today.
And given what Google's done with Google Podcast, meaning they killed it and have told everybody to move their podcasts over to YouTube, it makes extra sense now to have the podcast kind of on its own thing too, right?
Yes and no, because that's the one spot. So I feel like the transition has went pretty well. We obviously still streamed the past 5 episodes to the PC World channel while we uploaded the pre-recorded one over on the new channel. Yeah. And obviously we've been talking about it inside the podcasts, but and so a lot of our diehards have come over. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. But some people didn't, which is why, Willis was like, hey, I think we should do like a standalone video, which is good. A lot of people have seen that and chimed on or subscribed to it. But the one problem that we're run into, which I don't know necessarily how to fix that problem other than like making other problems for ourselves, is that early on, back when YouTube was able to create podcasts, right? You could, if you had a playlist, you could check it and say, this is an official podcast, and it goes to the audio only feeds and things like that. We had already all that work set up, so immediately when that kind of switched over, we already had access to that. So that playlist, the Full Nerd playlist on the PC World channel, was the official podcast feed, right? That went into Google Podcasts, and now it goes into YouTube Music. The problem is that now what I tried to do was create a new playlist on this new channel, tag that as the new official podcast, and then link back to the old episodes on the PC World channel. The problem is that those episodes don't exist on the Full Nerd channel, so they don't go to the new feed.
Oh, so you have to move all the old episodes over to the new playlist?
No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So what I've done right now is we have 2 feeds. We have one that is tagged the Full Nerd quote old episodes, essentially starting at like 300 or 305. I can't remember.
305, yeah.
Yeah, and then now the new podcast, which is episode 300 going forward. So that's the only place where it's broken down.
Welcome to the glamorous world of podcast back end and optimization.
Yeah, luckily, I feel bad for the people who do maybe listen on YouTube Music, but luckily the statistics are very low of those people. I
have a question, Adam.
Yes.
So I was going through those comments in the video that you posted yesterday too, and a lot of people were asking about the algorithm. if that plays into that. Could you talk about that any? Like, is this because YouTube doesn't like mixing short and long-term videos? Is it totally different? Can you just, a lot of people were asking about that.
I would say prior to a couple years ago, yes, it 100% hurt.
Yeah.
Like we knew, I mean, I would see it specifically, hey, because the idea is that you have, some some normal length content. I don't know, like, our videos are usually like 10 to 20 minutes, right? And then if the next video is a 2-hour long podcast which by nature of a podcast is a subset of listeners, so you get lower click-through rates, you get longer watch time, but you get lower view counts. I mean, it's just the nature of it, and we always accepted it. But then the subsequent videos after that would be depreciated because the algorithm's like, hey, your last video didn't perform well, so you got to prove to us again that these next videos are going to do better. That's not so much the case now. Supposedly, Google says that that normal videos, shorts, and podcasts, or live content, they all have their own tab on a channel. They all have their own. They say they all have their own algorithms that they work off of. I don't fully believe it. I don't know, but also like that's not why we made that decision. Okay. In the past, we should have done that because it 100% could have been the main reason to do it. But even then, it was never enough for me to pull off that Band-Aid and say, you know what, the pain of like starting a new channel was never worth trying to game the algorithm. And I don't know. I always think it's funny when people are like, you guys are just trying to game the algorithm. I'm like, have you seen our stuff? Like like if anything, like I could probably do better at trying to game the algorithm.
If we were trying to game the algorithm, there'd be pictures of Adam and Gordon on the channel going all the time.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. Like we refused for so long to
Which
do
we still
any
refuse.
thumbnail.
No O faces.
I know, but like, I mean, yes, but also like even then, like even our headlines or sorry, our video titles for the longest time were so like matter of fact
Very
because we
generic,
were like we were very anti going anywhere in that direction. I think over time we've like softened that because it's just kind of obvious like the algorithm rewards at least a little of it, but you don't know the conversations we've had in the background about that.
Yeah So like anyway, so yeah, the that choice is, yes, a part of why we did this, but it is nowhere near the major reason. Once again, all roads point to, hey, having a separate identity between those two channels. And honestly, metrics, because sometimes, like it's hard to pull out metrics and be like, okay, I mean, I know that there are some people who only watch normal PCWorld content and never watch the podcast. There are some people who just watch the podcast and never watch our normal content. So this is a way to make those two cleans. If there's an algorithm thing, I think that's the benefit, is that there are two separate identities, two separate audiences that we're talking to. And sure, there's a lot of overlap, but the algorithm, another way to think about the algorithm is audiences. I like to think of it as audiences. So, hey, we're just trying to put the right content in front of the right audience. And I mean, actually, there was a comment on the video that was just like, literally said, okay, I unsubbed here and subbed over there, and I'm like, okay, perfect, and that's for you. So that's like I think they were trying to maybe make a dig to be like, hey, your normal stuff sucks, but really I was like, well, no, that's the point. If you don't watch your normal stuff, then this is for you over here.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing at the end of the day. Like having done this for a long time, like if you no knocks against people who appear to be chasing algorithm changes, but like you're much better off just building what you think is the stuff that your audience wants to watch and not worrying too much about what YouTube's doing. Because they're gonna, no matter what they're doing right now, they're gonna change it in like 3 or 4 months anyway. And then you're gonna have built a whole bunch of content that no longer works the way that you want it to, and it's better just to do what you think is right and not worry too much about chasing.
Yeah, if you build the video for audiences, then that's the best approach. Yeah.
I do have a question though.
Yes.
So for the people who have been subscribed to the PC World channel, and we've done things like Will's like awesome video about game development PCs, and like our case videos, and like things related to PC building. Like where can people find that content in the future? Is that still going to go on PC World, or will that start living on this channel?
No, right now this channel is a podcast channel. The full nerd, the full nerd is a podcast. So I mean, just to be honest and open, there has been talks of like, in the future maybe there's just a full nerd channel, So the podcast will have its own channel. Maybe there's a full near channel, and maybe that's where we put the
channels.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
Really going for that income stream.
Triple the money.
Yeah. Maybe that's where we put the hardcore DIY desktop stuff. And then the main PCWorld channel is where we do the more general kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. We don't have the resources quite yet, but yeah.
I'm just clarifying for everybody out there who might be like the other person in the comments who said, well, I unsubscribed from PCWorld because I only want the podcast. But there are people who might like some of our, normal content too and are wondering where to get that. So I think that answers that question.
Good question.
So,
yeah. Good question. Yeah.
Say subscribe to both.
Yeah. Well,
subscribe to both.
It's not going to hurt my feelings if you unsubscribe to the normal PCWorld channel. But yeah, if the podcast is only living here. Everything else, interviews, hands-on trade shows, everything
builds,
normal,
all that stuff.
Yeah. So if anything, and I mean this is baked into the plan, the normal PCWorld channel is actually going to get hurt because we're taking a lot of that views away from the main channel. So
it
makes
sense though.
It makes sense. It makes sense. It's collateral damage. I don't know, for lack of a better term.
It's okay.
But
we will survive and grow stronger.
Yeah. And Datus,
with your support,
you can sub to both. You can.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
So yeah,
it's 2 for the price of 1 right now if you sub today.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I like that.
Double the content.
Will's really good at that.
Smart.
Will, have you done all those KQED drives?
Let me tell you. Let me tell you about the tote bag, Elena. Okay, we got a 3-for-1 match right now coming in hot.
Do we have tote bags?
Just call now. Support your local public PC World.
Your friendly local nerds.
And yeah, actually, so Ziv makes a good point. Large enough tech channels do this, and I actually think that people have different approaches. I'm sorry. Jay has the RTFM podcast, right? And he actually has that on his normal channel where somebody like LTT, they have separate channels for most of that stuff. Some people have channels separately just for clips, like where it's just like, hey, this is our short form content. It's just a channel for short form content. Because actually, and I have heard a lot of people who are like, I hate shorts. I never want to watch them. It is a completely different audience. So I can understand, hey, maybe you just want to chase that audience and you have a whole separate channel for that. So as of right now, I mean, we're not getting that deep into it. It's literally just we're doing all the same stuff, but we're just peeling away the podcast and putting it on its own channel. So, yeah.
Bam.
Anyway, sorry about that.
We're not greedy. We might actively be hurting ourselves with this, but we think it works out better for us and for you.
Yeah, so there was one channel. I think it was, or one comment that I think it was a friend of the show. They were like, "Oh man, I think this is a horrible decision." And I'm like, you know what? Tell you the truth, I have had nights of like, "Oh my god, am I making the right decision?" But no, I don't.
Our current viewer count, I think it's like 140, 150, which for a brand new channel, I think that's a good start.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone. Everyone coming over.
Here's a good idea. Falcon Northwest is in the house saying that we need a Gordon rant channel. Yes, fully.
Wait, isn't that every channel?
Yeah.
So the angry nerd, I think there's probably 1 or 2 of those already, but we can go further in.
The angry old nerd. Oh no, I'm sure there's one of those as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should get to the topics. That's enough of the behind the scenes stuff. Thanks for letting us describe it. The first topic is FSR 3.1. It has been here in a small capacity with Ghost of Tsushima. What was that, launched 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
I've been playing it. It's quite good.
Oh man, I beat the hell out of that game already on PS5, so I have not gone back to it on the PC, but I love the game, especially the DLC that had cats in it. So I'm all
what?
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah,
No, I've been holding off because it's like basically the Assassin's Creed game I've actually wanted.
It's really good.
I know.
And then you get to an island that has a lot of cats on it.
No. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's very good.
That's DLC. Sorry.
It's worth playing. So I was playing last night actually when you sent me this thing that FSR 3.1 was out, and I was like, oh. Yeah, I saw the patch notes that said this game has FSR 3, and I went and flipped the switch. It looks nice.
Yeah, so FSR 3.1 was announced earlier this year. Once again, Ghost of Tsushima has already had it, but this is the inflection point that I think it's like, hey, this is getting a wider release, which, funny enough, all of the games on the release right now are Sony games, so I'm not quite sure if there's a tie in there, but maybe that leads to some sort of integration with consoles. I don't know. You're gonna have to ask Digital Foundry for that kind of testing.
Well, I mean, I think the whole point of FSR, as always, is that it's hardware agnostic, right? So that's the exciting thing, is that it runs on NVIDIA GPUs, it runs on Intel GPUs, it runs on AMD GPUs, it runs on console GPUs, presumably, and like in an exciting way, it means that we're going to see benefits to Steam Deck and handheld users as well.
For sure, yeah.
And this release drive makes that even like more so, because the big point of this release is that it decouples the super sampling from the frame generation. So when FSR 3 first came out, you could turn on FSR 3, but they would be tied together in a game. Now developers and users can work in FSR 3.1 frame gen alongside DLSS and XESS. So this just makes it even more hardware agnostic. Well, it also, what's the exact term? I forget. The underlying image quality, they improve temporal stability, reduced flickering, shimmering, and ghosting. So,
and better detail preservation.
So anecdotally, when I switched from DLSS to FSR 3.1 on the Ghost of Tsushima, it seemed like the colors were brighter and it was a little crisper, which I was kind of surprised by. I was, in fairness, I usually play at 1080p and then I super sample, like I run the FSR DLSS resolution higher and sample down for image quality. But
that makes it look great.
Yeah, it looks really good. Looks really good, and the frame rate was butter smooth. I mean, 4090 in a PS4 game essentially. So
yeah, so definitely those two main things. I mean, at first I want to kind of tackle the decoupling thing because I think there's an interesting discussion. There are a lot of people out there who are not fans of frame generation, but it is a valuable tool for when you need it, and hopefully it will continue to get better. This is something that can benefit almost everyone, because if you're like, hey, I have an NVIDIA card and I like DLSS for its upscale technology, which there are benefits over FSR's upscaling, but the frame generation is maybe better on 3.1. So, you could have your upscaling with NVIDIA and your frame generation with AMD, or maybe the same thing with Intel or whatever. It's a nice way to kind of have your cake and eat it too. I don't know. I feel like we're always in a space of like, hey, one of the benefits of the PC is that you can configure it however the hell you want. So that's kind of a good thing, right?
Yeah, I love it actually. I love DLSS. I love DLSS 3 frame gen. But it having to be tied to NVIDIA hardware is a bummer. Especially with how wide of a reach AMD has outside of the PC, like has all the console stuff too. So it needs like all these separate little bits. And I think decoupling this, I think perhaps before what do you think, Will? There might have been developers who are hesitant to add AMD FSR 3 because a lot of PC gamers have GeForce hardware, but now that FSR 3.1 frame gen is decoupled, there's a chance we might see it in more games.
Well, so no, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the market penetration on NVIDIA hardware for PC is absolutely right. I think the cross-platform nature of FSR 3, so in the early days of DLSS, when we made this decision for the Anacrusis, we were looking at FSR 1 kind of stunk, and XESS wasn't out yet. And DLSS was there, and we had 2 days to put this in. And so we went with DLSS because it was like 75% of the gaming market on PC, and there was there was no benefit to running FSR on consoles or whatever at that point. When you're looking at a cross-platform solution for this that works on, presumably, I assume the reason this is on Sony platforms is because it also works on Sony hardware, because it's AMD hardware under the hood, right? Also works on Xboxes, and benefits the PC, and all the helps you hit frame rate targets on your handhelds. This is it makes this a much easier decision, because you're then, instead of covering some subset of the market, you're covering not just all of the PC market, but all of the markets you might potentially put in your game, and it seems like a much better use of your time. So I think you're absolutely right, Brad. And I think this is the place where open provides benefits. The fact that that it looks really nice, helps as well. So, yeah.
And to be clear, frame generation is not new. It's just the decoupling of it that is new in 3.1.
Yeah.
So
frame generation came out with FSR 3. The decoupling is new in FSR 3.1. They also have driver level fluid motion frames, but that can get real tricky with the latency and the lag. So I'm really excited to see this. Hopefully this one, to me, it's clear that the best solution, like technically how it feels to play, is to have these integrated in the games when possible. And I think decoupling FSR 3.1 is going to do a lot of good for that.
Yeah.
And for you guys, when you're playing with games that have frame generation, like I find I turn it on game controller games, and I tend to not like it on mouse and keyboard games because the latency is more noticeable on the mouse and keyboard. Does that align? How are you all feeling about that?
Yeah, good question. Elena, do you ever use frame gen?
No, I mean, for how my hardware is set up, I don't really need it. And then a lot of times I am on my console. So I am a dirty pleb.
It'd be funny if Gordon went chime.
I summoned him.
Brad, what's your current temperature with frame gen?
I don't have to have it, but in general, in games that have it, I try to run it at quality settings because quality's like the least amount of upscaling, but is giving you that boost. Does give you a tangible boost that you can feel in the games without taking anything moment to moment visually. You can pixel peep and screen peep, and you might notice stuff at the quality settings, but playing it, as long as the shimmering and the ghosting ain't too bad, I love the quality settings, so I use it as much as possible.
Well, what about the frame gen specifically?
Frame gen is something I use if I need it. Like in Flight Simulator, it's awesome because that's a very slower paced game. It's fine for it to run, 30 frames per second, or 60 frames is what I used to max out at. Running it at 120 frames per second with DLSS frame gen or whatever on, you can feel it. Like, you can feel that. But that's because, like Will says, it's a slower paced game. For me, I do tend to shy away from it in games that I use mouse and keyboard for, because that is much more tactile and visceral, and I can feel it a little bit more. So I do tend to stick to controller games.
Willis, do you ever use frame gen?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's definitely game specific. I mean, I mostly game on controller anyway, so like for me, it's I'm always about visual quality. Like that's where I tend to lean. I would prefer a stable visual quality over high frame rates. I like all the bells and whistles. So yeah, like a good example for me, like frame gen. I actually kind of turned it on and off and used it a lot during Alan Wake to just kind of test it out in there. And I didn't really like it visually when you were in the forest because there was just so much going on that I saw the visual breakup easier.
That fog made
Yeah, where in the city areas, spoilers, this takes place in 2 areas. I don't think it's a spoiler. In the city areas, it was, I actually turned it on and it was, like I didn't have that visual degradation. It didn't bug me as much. So it really is game specific. And yeah, I lean more on actual upscaling versus frame gen at this point. Like, not that I think it's bad. It's just, it's not to the point where I'm like leaning on it or anything like that. But I do think upscaling is to the point, where it's like, I almost always use upscaling if that option is there. And
at this point, on the Steam Deck, anything that supports the frame gen is going to get turned on, I think, probably.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
For me, at least.
So, and the developers are really working hard to get their titles, compatible with Steam Deck. And so I think that alone will make FSR 3.1, now that it's decoupled the frame gen, could give it a shot in the arm.
It's the process, Valve's process for getting Steam Deck verified is not it's part UI, part UX, part stuff like making sure your fonts are big enough and you have the right glyphs and all that stuff for the controller shortcuts. But they do also have perf targets, and if you don't hit if you don't have a performance profile that you can pass to the game that will run at their perf targets, then they'll deny you over and over again. And so this could help games that are marginal now get that green check mark, which is it's real nice. It's good to have. So.
Okay, and then the other part of it is cleaning up the actual upscaling tech. I don't think FSR 3.1 had any sort of updates to the upscaling technology versus FSR 2.2 or whatever. I think that was the latest one. So now they're going back to the upscaling and making sure things are a little more up to date, right?
Yeah, you said FSR 3.1 didn't. I think you meant FSR 3.
3.
FSR 3 had the same upscaling as 2.2. Now they're working in all the ghosting and shimmering reductions and everything that they were talking about. I haven't had a chance to play with it myself, unlike Will yet, but I was looking around before the show. Daniel Owen has a really good video showing some of the differences in Ratchet and Clank especially. And there are times when it makes, tangible, visceral differences to the way the game looks, which is great. Digital Foundry, I was listening to like a roundtable with them. And their overall impressions are, this is better. That's great. We still kind of prefer the visual quality of DLSS and XESS. But this is better than it was before, and we love the fact that frame gen's decoupled is basically Digital Foundry's take.
And because I do a lot of handheld gaming, like the upscaling there, whatever benefits, is different than like on a big TV or whatever. So I think maybe I have different experiences on some, but yeah, I never felt like FSR 2.2 was bad by any capacity, but I do like the fact that it looks like, or at least in the early tests that I've seen, with Daniel Owen and stuff, is that it kind of has a cleaner image. Yes, it's maybe a little bit more artifacty, but it's not as like muddy kind of thing. So, and actually on handheld, I've always noticed, me personally, I almost turn off any sort of anti-aliasing on handheld. Usually you get a little bit of performance gain, and then because the screen size is so small, I feel like I don't need that extra level of anti-aliasing. So yeah. Cool stuff. I mean, I guess where can they go from here? Where do we think that the actual changes are going to be made in the future? I mean, there's upscaling, there's frame generation. Both are being worked on by all companies. Actually, well, I guess Intel doesn't have their own version of frame generation yet, so they can introduce something like that. But apart from that, I mean, is there a new category we're not thinking of, or do you think at this point, for the next foreseeable future, we're just going to see improvements to the algorithms and stuff?
I mean, I think they'll continue training the models to have the kind of improvements like the grossing reduction and the color. Like we'll see more vivid colors and better color representation and stuff like that. I think the frame generation, the next step is to get the latency down. And I think as we start to see machines that have MPUs integrated in CPUs and stuff like that, that might help with that. I mean, we're already, presumably our GPUs are already more capable hardware than is in the NPUs. But there's always, we've seen this time and time again where we introduce some sort of new hardware acceleration, and then it's faster, but it has latency, and then the latency drills down. And like we saw that with H.264 and H.265 encoding and decoding, where at first it was hardware accelerated and slow, and then it was hardware accelerated and the latency was really, really good. And I think we'll see that with this stuff in is the next step probably.
Brad, could you ever see NVIDIA decoupling DLSS frame gen and upscaling?
It's intrinsically tied to their tensor cores, so no.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it could, but you wouldn't necessarily see a benefit because it's all NVIDIA hardware.
NVIDIA wouldn't do it. Yeah. What I think the answer to the question you just asked is something that we just got with Copilot Plus PCs, actually, which are the Copilot Plus aspects of them are largely a wet fart. But one cool technology that's in there
is that a technical term? Is that did you put an Oxford comma after that one?
The wet fart's a bad thing, just to be clear. I just want to get this out.
See, I thought that was fun.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I guess it depends on your audience, but yeah, most of the AI features are bad. But one thing that it does bake in is I forget the exact name of it because there's a couple different underlying super resolution technologies, but they make it easier within Windows for developers to just hook into all these different ecosystems.
I think you're talking about Auto SR.
Yeah, that's it. Then the other one I think is Direct SR. I don't know. I haven't actually touched the Copilot PC yet, so.
You mean like this Snapdragon X Elite?
You're like your right here. Thin and light gaming laptop. Yeah. Clearly.
Oh yeah, clearly for gaming. So actually, I have used Auto SR a little bit. and I have
but
not
no,
been
no, but
impressed.
Auto SR and Direct SR are different things. I'm not talking about the upsampling Auto SR.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about they actually tied into DirectX to make it easier for game developers to be able to tie these various upscaling and frame gen technologies in.
Got it.
And I think that will make it so they're much more widely adopted. The most annoying part to me right now is, will this game have upscaling or not? It totally depends on what hardware I have. And I hate that. If Microsoft can make it easier to be like, hey, developers, just here's the tools, plug in the bits that you need to. I know it's harder than that, but a simplified version of it, and then every game supports at least 2 or 3 of them, at least AMD, because AMD FSR runs on everything. I think that would be a huge improvement.
The interesting thing I don't get about DirectXR, and I haven't read about it yet, so this is on me, but it's not a super resolution implementation. It's a way to expose that your game supports super resolutions from other vendors. So it's basically caps bits for super resolution.
Yeah, here's a good line here. It's a standalone solution, meaning it removes the need to integrate vendor-specific SDKs or package vendor-specific libraries with your title.
Oh, so then this is a replacement for FSR, DLSS, or XeSS. This is their own version of that.
They have, I'm mixing up the names because they're both very close. There's one that is a replacement, and there's another one that it just makes it easier to tie in.
Got it.
Intel, NVIDIA.
Yeah,
it has the usual Microsoft naming scheme thing where you don't know what the hell any of it is. It all sounds the same.
Hey, here's a bunch of really long acronyms that we don't actually explain anywhere. The Microsoft way.
Perfect. I mean, hey, but it does really feel like we're going to continue to. Sorry, the chat says we need to put that on a shirt. AI is a wet fart.
Bestseller right there.
There you go. It does really feel like, I mean, we are talking a lot about upscaling, about what is even an actual real frame. All this kind of stuff. This definitely is a huge part of the conversation going forward. Some people don't like it, for sure. There's people, I mean, even in the chat here today, they're like, hey, I never use any of this sort of stuff, and then some people who use it all the time, and it has gotten to a good spot, and hopefully will continue to get better. So I think we're in an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, especially as a graphics card reviewer.
Yeah. And any reason why we think it's only in Sony titles right now? Is that odd?
Well, if you think about it, Sony has the most of the console vendors. Sony has a lot to gain here, right?
Yeah,
because they don't have a native solution, and this is going to help them. Like, if you look at a PS4, which at this point, or PS5 rather, which is kind of aging hardware at this point compared to what's shipping on the PC, this lets them smooth out those frames on both the console side and the PC ports.
I mean, but AMD, like, that's Sony's reason, but AMD could have launched with a bunch of titles, not just Sony titles.
Well, Sony also just released like 4 titles in the last 3 weeks, it seems like. So
yeah, I think it's marketing for the most part. AMD has very close ties to Sony. They make the PlayStation chips for 2 generations now. I think it's really hard to time a bunch of different studio announcements like this. Like, games are each on their own schedule. Like, trying to pull together 5 to launch all at once should be very difficult. Mm-hmm. I think tapping into Sony titles, let's AMD do that, say, hey, we got 5 of these, Spider-Man, God of War, the big games right out of the bat. And it also helps Sony say, hey, see, we're at the forefront of PC where we're trying to push hard now too. So I think it's kind of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours for both of them.
Yeah.
Also, Sony, I think, uses one studio to do their ports.
Oh, Nixies, right?
Yeah, Nixies. So that puts them in a situation where the person who's making this decision is probably making all these decisions for these games is probably at one place, or the people making these decisions, and they have expertise doing those these aren't, at least on Unreal and Unity, these are relatively simple installations. On these games that maybe using their own engines for Sony, it's maybe more complicated, and having that back end expertise is probably makes it easier for them.
Which friend of the show, Liquid R, in the chat does point out that there is a rumor of a Sony specific upscaling solution, PSSR. So yeah, who knows if maybe that's somehow working together, or
I mean, there's a real training cost for the AI models to train these things, though. So, like, is it this is a place where does it make more sense for Sony to do their own or to draft off of AMD's training models and then not have to spend bazillions of dollars training a bunch of AI?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's where Intel goes too. Like, I'm real curious to see if Intel does bother doing a frame gen tech. I wouldn't be surprised if they do, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they say, hey, you know, we're a big believer in open standards at Intel. FSR 3.1's out here kicking butt already. We're just gonna, you know, throw our engineers into that effort too. Try to make
and just focus on the upscaling part of it, not the generation.
Yeah. If you look at it though, AMD has big cloud resources, right? Intel has big cloud resources. Microsoft has big cloud resources. NVIDIA has big cloud resources. Not so much Sony. So
exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep. That makes sense.
They're paying to train versus everybody else can just train in the Slack on their other training.
Oh wait,
yeah.
I am so sorry. There is something. At least when I'm googling, article from GuruThreeD.com about Intel Extra SS frame generation.
Oh.
Was that an actual thing that was announced? Wow.
I'm not familiar.
I missed that.
If that is real, then I had forgotten about that. Intel is preparing to launch its frame generation algorithm Extra SS. Can't tell if this is an actual thing or a rumor.
I hope it's a rumor because that's a terrible name. If so,
Extra SS. Yeah.
Extra.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, you get your extra frames. You know, you buy your normal frames and then you get a little sprinkling of extra frames on the top. You know, just in case you want those. All right. Cool. Then let's move on. I mean, we'll see. You know, I'm definitely going to be doing some testing. You were going to try it out on the Steam Deck and that kind of stuff.
I want to see what it does for Ghost of Tsushima on the Steam Deck.
Yeah. Cool. Then let's move over to the rest of 2024. I think we have a good smattering, a good indication of what the rest of the year is gonna look like. Honestly, it's kind of a slow news week too, so I was like, you know, it's just a little bit of smattering stuff. Why don't we kind of look into the future? Partially what's been announced, partially what's been rumored, partially what maybe we hope will come out. I kind of broke this down into companies specifically, and if you want to follow along, I did link to a lot of this in the actual description of the video. Ooh. If you want to follow along, yeah. So we don't have to start here, but we can start here. I linked to a Tom's Hardware article by who wrote this, Jeff Butts, about Arrow Lake. So Arrow Lake is the new desktop CPU platform. There are leaks, rumors, all this kind of stuff. The official information is pretty sparse. There are some current leaks and things like that, but what we expect Arrow Lake to be is a kind of their Intel's push from the laptop AI into desktop AI in a disaggregated architecture, all of this kind of stuff. Yeah, we already know, and actually we saw motherboards with a new socket. We couldn't officially show it off, but yeah, I mean the new socket LGA 1851.
Yeah, you could show the motherboard with the socket in it. You couldn't peel off the socket.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. There were stickers over it to hide any sort of naming, but I mean the socket itself has said 1851. Since a couple years. So we know that there's going to be more pins. We know the actual size of the socket is the same. The technology behind it, we're not quite sure. But this newest leak from Tom's Hardware, or one of the newer leaks, is talking about some sort of new addition of more PCI lanes, no support for DDR4, which is actually something that kind of got rumored a little later.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Actually, I was going to ask that. Like DDR4, like obviously there is no for AM5 based boards, it is DDR5, and if you have DDR4, then we still have Ryzen 5000. Check it out, kind of thing for the AMD side. But for the Intel side, they've supported both DDR4 and DDR5 throughout Alder Lake, Raptor Lake, and Raptor Lake Refresh. So, yeah, we really do think it's time to new platforms say, hey, cut out DDR4.
I'm going to jump in real quick on this because I kind of go about it from the perspective of like how saturated the market is now for DDR5 RAM, right? And now we're pretty much seeing RAM prices for DDR5 in the same range that we were seeing DDR4 when the platforms first launched. So to me, it wouldn't make sense to necessarily keep that door open indefinitely, especially now that it's not going to be that much of an imposition financially on people to make that upgrade along with the rest of the the new PC or the motherboard CPU combo that you're upgrading to. So for me, it makes sense just given the rest of the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it made sense for Intel to support both right when the 12th gen came out, because that was right as things were starting to transition. Mm-hmm. And DDR5 was $500.
Super expensive.
It would have been dead in the water if that was the only thing it supported. AMD launched 6 months later, and there were still DDR5 pricing problems. But, they largely went away after that. And it's such a mess keeping track of all the different motherboards. Does this one support DDR4? Does this one support DDR5? All that kind of stuff. And I honestly think that if 14th gen wasn't just a refresh of 13th gen, which wasn't just a refresh of 12th gen, they would have jettisoned it last year, and it would have been fine then too.
I think that's exactly right. And you look at, they have channel data that tells them how many of each kind of motherboards are selling. So they know how many DDR4 versions and how many DDR5 versions they sold last for 14th gen. So this isn't a controversial choice for them.
And there's still enough probably in the channel to sell through to. I mean, I think it was yesterday saying, hey, I just bought a new Ryzen 5000 base system. So, if there are people who are looking to get in on those platforms, they're still readily available. For the Intel side, who knows how long 12th, 13th, or 14th gen will be available in the channel, but probably for at least a bit.
I'm not going to chase down a 14900K right now, probably for for other reasons, but AMD's releasing new AM4 DDR4 machines this year, right?
Well,
CPUs this year. You can go buy a brand new AM4 DDR4 machine. If that's what you want.
It is true, yeah. So I guess it depends. Will Intel just try to keep that longevity going? I don't think it's going to be quite the same as AM4, because the longevity on AM4 has been historic for sure. But Intel could do that and be like, hey, if you're a DDR4 buyer, then here we have 13th or 14th gen.
Intel has traditionally not really cared about the longevity of a platform.
Yeah. So okay, so more PCI lanes, new chipset, supposedly 2 M.2 direct to the CPU rather than 1.
That's awesome.
I've definitely run into this where I've had some motherboards that are like, hey, we've got one that's direct to the CPU, but if you run it at PCIe Gen 5 speeds, then we're going to cut your top slot GPU to by 8 instead of by 16. So I'm not looking for 2. I'm looking for a widespread adoption of just 1. But hopefully that'll help.
One thing that kind of bums me out reading this rumor is they're planning on integrating Thunderbolt 4, which is awesome. Thunderbolt 4 is awesome, but we already have, just yesterday, the first Thunderbolt 5 cable went on sale, and soon Thunderbolt 5 is going to be in Intel laptops. So I'm just kind of disappointed that it's a generation behind, because that means we're not going to see Thunderbolt 5 natively integrated in Intel chipsets until next year at the earliest.
Which is the same thing we heard on the laptop side too. I've definitely in briefings in the past year have been like, hey, well, when do we expect Thunderbolt 5 to be integrated natively in the chip? And every time they've said, for the foreseeable future, Thunderbolt 4 will be on the chip, the chipset itself, where Thunderbolt 5 is going to be some sort of add-on. Yeah. So, that doesn't mean that some laptops, or motherboards might have that add-on. So, it's probably a selling feature of higher end motherboards, but yeah. So, that's still.
I'm intrigued by this, but I tell you what, man, usually I'm willing to make predictions of some sort on new technology that's coming. But I have no idea what Arrow Lake is going to be like. I would not place a single prediction on this. They've been stuck using the Raptor Lake, etc. Not stuck, but they have been using, because of the higher clocks, Raptor Lake, etc. on desktop for 3 generations now. And this is a big switch. We saw Meteor Lake was the big switch in laptops. And we saw that the performance itself didn't actually increase over what was available before. It was just, here's these new capabilities from the tiles. So did they solve that on the desktop? I have no idea. This is the biggest question mark I can remember in recent memory, other than possibly Qualcomm.
I think if they're best, I think when they're moving from a standard monolithic architecture to a desegregated architecture, if they don't have performance problems, if they reduce power and keep the same performance, they've won. Like,
I agree with that.
This is a hard shift. This is as big as when they went from is Nehalem in a lot of ways, right? Which was first dual cores, and like, this is a hard thing to do. There's a lot of moving pieces. The OS has to talk to the CPU and the schedulers and all that stuff at a really low level that, like, if you look at how this went with AMD, made the shift a few years ago, it was hard. It was a bad transition. And if they do it seamlessly and it's as good as the current ones and significantly reduced power, I'm big thumbs up to Intel.
Well, there has been another rumor, so this one's definitely in hard rumor lane. There was an article on published yesterday on PC Gamer by Nick Evanson, based off a rumor from Kepler on X about Arrow Lake chips might be using a brand new core layout for the first time in years. So essentially, the cores will be busted out almost at kind of a little bit, kind of like two different dies, like what's on AMD CPUs. So
like some fabric between,
yeah, maybe some glue, who knows. Yeah, but instead of having the cores in a layout that's pretty standard for Intel, they've just essentially added more cores to the row and added extra rows and things like that, and then some were P, some were E, that kind of stuff, and then having a ring bus to connect them. This notable difference is kind of could signal a big change, which can be good for some workloads and maybe not for others. Either way, there's probably going to be teething pains, the same that we saw in Meteor Lake. Anytime you kind of change up that kind of core architecture, there's definitely a lot of testing to be going on. We will be very busy if that is indeed the case, but that one's in solid rumor. So yeah, the official specs, not quite sure.
Not announced yet.
Not announced yet. Next up for Intel to talk about is Battle Mage. So I linked to a rumor over here on WCCF Tech by Hassan. There is a rumor that actually there was a couple of rumors of like, oh hey, here's new code names that are popping up in Linux. What is this? So they have to submit parts to Linux to be able to get official support. You know more about Linux than I do, right? And I don't think that's in this article, but there's new code names specifically. The article itself kind of lays out all that stuff. We don't need to get too deep because this very much is in rumor territory. When was the last time Intel talked about Battle Mage? Or talk
about it at CES?
They talked not as the desktop, but they had talked about it a bunch as part of the Lunar Lake rollout. Yep,
definitely. But desktop Battle Mage, I think last time was maybe Tap when we talked to him at CES, and it was the general kind of like, oh hey, you know what, we're working on it, can't wait to show it off, but nothing to talk about now. I can't wait to tell you about it. Kind of response.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been quiet, and we've talked about this before. Of hey, obviously there was some launch pains with Alchemist, and Intel is trying to say, hey, we're just going to keep mum until we have solid details to talk about. Brad, do you think that's the right thing, or do you think they should be talking about it a little bit to get people excited?
No, I think they're doing the right thing. I like a lot of what Intel's been doing with its marketing recently. In the build up to Intel Arc, they got out ahead of their skis a little bit too much, promising too much, and I think this is a hard-earned correction. And I like what I'm seeing personally.
Did they launch Alchemist before 4000 series NVIDIA cards, or was it after?
It's after.
It was like, no, it was right around the same time, I think.
Right. I feel like they announced the Arc cards, and then the 4090 was announced, and then the Arc cards came out, and then the 4090 came out. I can't remember the timeline there.
The Arc came out, I have my review open right here, on October 12th, 2022. And I think 40 series was right around then, too.
Somewhere around it, yeah. But they obviously started at the high end.
They waited too long to release these. If these had come out 6 months earlier without all the driver problems, it would have been a bigger splash. But I'm looking at the article that you linked, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it interesting that it tops out at 448 execution units and 28. What is the term? I forget the term.
What's
the tensor core things?
Just the XE cores. They just call them XE cores. Everyone calls them something different. So, but if you look at that for the first gen, the A770, so the high end one, had 32 cores and 512 of the execution units. The 28 and 448 matches up with the config in the slower speed A750. So that alone, right off the bat, is interesting to me. It's not necessarily even going to match the size of the top-end Alchemist card, if this rumor is true. Again, I hate rumors. That being said, they're clearly drastically overhauling some of the underlying stuff on this, so I wouldn't look too far into that right now, even though I just said all that.
So you're thinking we could see more capable cores than are on the first-gen parts and just keep the numbers the same?
It might be something like going from 20 series to 30 series, I think it was, where they drastically changed how some of the underlying stuff worked. So the core counts, it didn't make sense to compare them to the old ones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, either way, it looks like they're still aiming at that low to mid range rather than high end. Do we expect them to change that at all? To try to gun for a flagship?
I mean, I don't think AMD guns for NVIDIA flagships at this point, so why would Intel?
We'll get to those rumors too. Yeah,
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I could see Intel coming out with up to a $500 card if they get everything right, but I could also see them being like, "No, we're going to focus on the nuts and bolts, like soup and potatoes, meat and potatoes. This is where everybody buys stuff right now, while we get our stuff figured out."
Well, and there has been a lot of work on drivers, and that's something that's been translating both to laptop and desktop. So, like, I think no matter what, Battle Mage is going to benefit from the fact that they've been working so hard on drivers for since
2 years.
For many years at this point. So yeah,
welcome to the club, Qualcomm.
yeah. How do we feel about having a third party? Is it still important that we have a third party? Do we, as the press, we had that question? What was it, last week? Oh, Brad, you weren't here for that question. Wasn't the question? Let's see if I can bring this up.
Oh yeah, when we were talking about do we ever review something because we want competitive?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Like how much?
I remember that question because I signed out of this episode and I had somebody from a very big PR company screaming about me.
Oh. Oh yeah, it was from Ziv asking the responsibility of tech reviewers and journalists to give new competitors a boost in reviews for the sake of competition.
Yeah. I think it's more important now than ever to have three companies to have Intel coming in on this, actually, because I don't know if AI is another metaverse like boom or if it's going to be as huge as the investors are wish casting. I think the answer will be somewhere more in the middle. But NVIDIA, yes, clearly they're still the gaming leader, but this AI stuff makes them buckets and buckets of money. And they're already driving the cost of cutting-edge graphics cards up pretty high. And I can see that getting even more so if they continue making money hand over fist in the data center. So I think it's important to have Intel coming in here and be like, we're looking at the data center and stuff, but we're here focusing on the PC gamers and the traditional price points. And to have AMD and Intel at least down there doing that, I think is good.
To me, it seems like maybe... Hey, if Intel and AMD both come out with compelling, reasonably priced 4K cards this next generation, then that's a huge win for people who play games, right?
Yes,
because we don't really have that right now. You're looking at 4K cards are expensive still, and I think the number of 4K and 1440p, frankly, players out there that are underserved by GPUs or by reasonably priced GPUs is too high.
Yeah, and I think AMD has been chasing NVIDIA's price points. I think they could have come in lower. And I think, hopefully, Intel continues its aggressive marketing strategy to kind of pull things back down to normal levels.
Looking at the latest Steam hardware survey, which is just a slice, an indication of what's going on. Intel sits at 7.7 A770, 7.7%. But if you click into the more info, this is all integrated graphics.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, the top slot is XE. Is it XE or Z? I feel like people yell at me for different things.
I think
XE graphics, which are part of the newer platforms, is what is it? It's up to 1.93%. And then UHD graphics is next at 1.48%. So it's mostly laptop. Look at this. UHD, HD. Actually on this list is, Intel Haswell and Intel Ivy Bridge are on this list before any sort of ARC.
What's the resolution these days?
Good question. It's probably still 1080p.
Still 1080 it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you that for a fact. You can look it up, but it is.
The primary monitor, 1920 by 1080, 57%. It has gone down 0.05%.
1440p rising.
1440p is rising. 1920 by 1200 is also rising.
It's a classic resolution.
But 3840 by 2160 has fallen just a little bit. So 4K is still, I'll give overall percentages, at least in this survey. Here, and I'll say it in Gordon's way. 19 by 10 is 57%. Next is 25 by 14, and that is 19%. And 38 by 21 is 3%. So
wow, still that low.
Still, yeah.
720p is still 720p. 768 is still bigger than you would think because there's a lot of older laptops being used in other countries
and handhelds too.
Actually, you know what?
Window, right?
Interesting. 12 by 8, which is the Steam Deck, is at 0.4%.
Well, that seems about like what's the Linux penetration? About 0.4%.
There you go. And actually, look at this. Very close to 38 by 21, which is 3.7%, is 1366 by 768 at 3.4%. So, wow. 4K and real old monitors are neck and neck.
Sorry, ultra. There's an ultra wide resolution on here. 3440 by 1440 is
2.2%.
That's wow.
Oh, you mean 34 by 14?
Yeah, sorry, 34 by 14.
Yeah. Anyway, always interesting to look at those numbers. It's not, not a true indication. It's just a sample indication for sure.
Right, because it's self-selecting to who actually opts in to take the survey.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Battle Mage. I mean, we'll see. I guess the other question. So, the rumors are that Arrow Lake will come out before the end of the year. I feel pretty confident about that. Like me personally, I don't have any insight. Battle Mage, do you think it'll come out by the end of this year, Brad?
I think they would try, yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised to see it launched and announced at CES so that they have time to work on the laptops that come out with Lunar Lake first before having to devote more engineering resources to the desktop version. That's a stupid, boring business answer, but that's my honest answer.
I mean, the other thing, though, is there's a window here where fourth generation NVIDIA has got long legs, and they could if they could sneak something out soon. I think we've already heard about it. Then they have an opportunity to cut off a little bit of the fifth generation NVIDIA legs if they have something that's competitive. That's the big if.
Yeah.
I wish they would do it.
I'm optimistic.
# wait for Battle Mage.
Yeah. I wish they'd do a low budget video encode part for people who want to just put it in an OBS machine.
Well, that I think of the
A380.
Yeah, the A380 was kind of trying to be that. So yeah, maybe.
But they still could have cut out the graphics, a lot of those graphics cards, and just had it be a video encode part.
Yeah. That would have been interesting. Gordon had started to do some testing on, what would it look like with a 4090 and an A380 on the same system,
That's
and an AMD CPU. So you have all three.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't get we don't focus too much on laptop around here. We will mention it, but I mean, obviously, Lunar Lake was the big talk at Computex. It seems like it will definitely get out this year. Anything we want to talk about around Lunar Lake, or should we just move on to another company?
No, I think we're good on that one.
AMD. So this one, I mean, we have pretty hard knowledge on AMD CPU stuff. So the first one I linked to was a talk around the Ryzen 9000, which was actually announced at Computex. So we know that is coming. But there are recent rumors about, or it wasn't a rumor, I guess a retailer, a Slovenian retailer, put up the new Ryzen 9000 CPUs for pre-order, which I think officially AMD said, even in the interviews we did, was like July timeframe. So, I mean, we are in July, so sometime soon. So hopefully we know sooner rather than later. But it looks like, at least according to this, that Ryzen 9000 will feature some price dropping across the stack. Not officially. This is just, a retailer kind of putting stuff up. But yeah, I mean, what do we think? Do you think that makes it feel a little bit better, knowing that I mean, it feels like the response around 9000 series at Computex was like, oh, cool, great, so
that seems fine,
accurate, yeah, brutal and hilarious, yeah.
Cool, all right. But with a little bit of a price drop, it's like, oh, okay, okay, good on them, yeah, right. It feels like it elevates a little bit. What do we think? What's the temperature now? If there is indeed a price drop,
I think it's if it does happen, it's good. One, because of what you just said, which I don't necessarily agree with. They could have IPC improvements, different things shifting around, plenty of other things that can boost performance.
They did talk about some IPC for sure.
Yeah. So I think being like, it's just a new version of the same one is kind of underselling it a bit. But that perception is out there. Plus, coupled with the fact I remember when the 7000 series came out, people were not very happy with how highly they were priced. They had a price increase over 5,000. So between the two of those, I think it would be a great move to come out a little bit cheaper. But we're going to have to see where it goes.
Yeah.
Well, and interestingly, so one of my best picks for Computex was the Ryzen 7 9700X, because the default TDP had dropped from, I think it was like 120 watts to 65, something like that. Like almost halved the TDP range. But I did see another rumor. I didn't actually put it in here, but there was another rumor saying that actually AMD might be looking to juice that up to a higher wattage, that maybe they aimed a little too low on that wattage, which that I would be a little bit more of a bummer, because I do like that idea. Well, because
because you can undervolt, right? Like, I feel like that's kind of the meta right now with these chips, where they basically give you the full breadth of what you can get out of it, and then you can choose to dial it back if you think that it's taking, sucking too much electricity. And I kind of like that, as opposed to the idea that like you just have to like shell out like that much more for an overclocked part,
Well, they did say
one second. I will agree with that, but I will say that nobody actually underbolts. Like you or I might.
True. You're sitting next to somebody.
I know, but I know Adam does too. But I mean, like when they're designing these products to figure out to launch en masse, like I'd be surprised if 1% of PC owners undervolted. Like, to be honest,
I'm afraid to undervolt. Just because I want stability, and I'd rather run a little tiny bit hotter and not have the machine crash when I'm using it on high load.
Well, yeah. I remember in my interview we did at Computex, he was saying, hey, the default TDP is starting lower, but you can, if you want to push more into it and overclock it, these things will do great, according to them. So, like I think the option is there for both. I like the idea of a default TDP starting lower, and for the people who want to push it higher, the sky's the limit kind of thing. There is another article. This was posted June 14th, so a little bit older, but from, wow, I don't see. Oh, actually, there was a Tom's Tom's Hardware article by a friend of the show, Paul Alcorn. We need to have him on the show sometime. He interviewed Donnie, the same guy interviewed, talking about the actual default TDP ranges and specifically around the X3D systems. But the headline is like, hey, the 8-core version doesn't need higher TDP by default, but lower is kind of where they're aiming for it, especially for gaming, right? And especially when we talk about like the X3D parts. Like, I mean, I run a 7800 X3D on my gaming rig right now, and that thing, I have a low profile cooler on that, and I just have stock fan curves because that thing like is cool and quiet and efficient, and that's awesome. I feel like CPUs we're in a great spot. So efficiency, hell yeah, let's dial this back. I don't always need to see the biggest bar being better. Gordon does.
Do you want to point out? Though that chat's also reminding us all that undervolting is one click in AMD's software.
Oh, that's true.
It's super easy.
Yeah, like so. It like these days it's so much easier to play with settings that I kind of feel like. I mean, we can debate it, obviously, because that's what we're here for. But I also think that in some ways it's less of a big concern about what a default TDP is and what TDP is. I mean, these days, TDP is almost kind of like the nanometers discussion we've had in the past, where, sorry, Adam, I won't keep going on that.
I didn't say anything.
I won't keep going down the path. Also, for people who are new to podcasts, check out episode 300.
No,
you'll understand the
banned.
reference.
Oh,
Wow. Not going to grind this in.
just watch the short, you'll know. Anyway.
But because it's so easy now to like tailor your experience in software without having to like go in and like really fine tune and dial it in yourself, I just don't think it's as much of a concern as it used to be. Brad's not wrong that most people still won't open up that piece of software and like click a button, but you can, which is a far lower threshold to get into that than before.
If this rumor is true, I hate the reasons. I understand and hate the reasons that it's true. Because I was following this discussion on one of the Reddit forums the other day. And from what I was reading, apparently the reason that AMD is reportedly considering this, again, this is a rumor, who knows if it's true, is because they're worried that the 9700X won't match the 7900X 3D in gaming performance with the lower TDP, which is totally fair. Because the X and the X3D parts are two totally different things. The standard X is more of a all-arounder kind of thing that can game, it can do productivity, etc. I think it's unrealistic to expect the non-3D version of its successor to match the gaming performance of the 3D Vcache version. But I do think, the world is getting hotter. Like, everyone's having to use ACs more these days. The price of electricity is going up. AI is using all this energy. I like the idea of them saying, hey, the 9700X is going to be half the TDP as before and still kick ass. And to just juice it just to hit that benchmark, if that's what happens, I'd be disappointed in that.
Also, I don't know. I get so frustrated by people who are just like, we're going to laugh at the 9700X if it can't even live up to the 7800X 3D. And it's like, well, those are two different chips. And guess what? Not everybody is just here for PC gaming. Like, it's like,
don't tell them that. They don't know that.
I like, oh, AMD fail. And it's like, no, like, these are two different chips. If you don't like that one, then don't buy it. If you like this other one, then buy that one. Like, I don't, like, it
but
doesn't.
Adam, that's just entirely too reasonable.
Yeah.
It's the internet.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, 8 cores. I mean, I have it. Oh, yeah, no, actually, I didn't end up switching to that. But in my work rig, I was originally going to do a 7800X, or no, a 7700X, but then the chat was like, "Hey, do the 12 core and run it in eco mode." So I guess I can't say that. But originally, I was like, "Yeah, 8 cores is probably awesome." And yeah, I don't know. If you want to get the X3D version, then cool. But I think the other thing is people are like, man, why are we still not getting X3D parts around the same time? Which I think is a legit question. Like, couldn't AMD just come out with all the parts? You get the non-X3D and the X3D parts at the same time. a lot of people were like, oh, well, they want to try to juice their customers, or they want to wait, or they're trying to, fracture the market or stuff like that. Like, I don't know. I think it's just for different people. If you want to wait for the X3D ones, then wait for the X3D ones. Like,
it's also more complicated manufacturing, right? Like, my guess is they're working through the kinks in the new line, in the new chips, and then rolling out the complicated thing on top. Because if they make a whole bunch of them that fail the cert process, they're going to be more expensive, and that sucks for everybody, right? This is common sense.
But also they've kind of already established this rhythm, right? So I think if they were to change that, it kind of throws off that upgrade cycle for people who already bought into that X3D ecosystem. You know what I mean? So I don't see an advantage to them given how things have been running for them to change it. Because one, it's like it's a company, but the companies are made of people, and people only have so many hours and things they can do at one time, right? So it narrows the scope of what they have to get done a little bit. They can concentrate on each thing. As Will just said, there's the manufacturing component, and then 3, from my perspective, there's also the scheduling component. So I don't see an advantage to them to just launch everything at once. Also, it allows them to keep that line seeming fresher for longer, right? Otherwise, you just released everything in what they're saying, September 2024, and then you release everything in 2024, and then 2 years from now we're like, oh, it's so old because it's 2 years. But if they are rolling out different parts of it over the course of those 2 years, it won't seem quite so stale.
Yeah, well, and if they launched it all at the same time, what would people on the internet get to yell about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
I also think I agree with all of that. I also think that people sometimes forget that in order to throw that Vcache on there, you have to reduce the clock speeds. And there are plenty of applications that have nothing to do with gaming that are very clock speed sensitive. And I don't think it's fair to, ask for the 3D just to be the norm now. I would kind of think of it as hey, man, if you're purely gaming focused and you love the X3D chips, just consider yourself on the X3D upgrade cycle. When AMD announces 9000 series, ignore it other than to say to yourself, sweet, I'll have some new 9000 X3D chips in a few months.
Yeah. Which I think that's the thing, is that maybe people are just not used to having that, because CPUs usually, most of it comes out, at a launch, and then you maybe you get a refresh, or maybe you get non-overclockable parts a little bit later, but usually the release.
I look at these as the TI or super graphics cards from NVIDIA, right? 6 months, a year later, you get 10% more performance in some titles, so you're able to tweak some things. You don't have to wait. It's only a 10% performance improvement in most titles. It's just a midpoint upgrade. Yeah, but for CPUs.
Yeah.
Can I say the thing I'm really disappointed about with the AMD 9000 CPUs?
Just kidding. What?
Look, there's an obvious co-marketing tie-in with brands. Why is there no Dragon Ball edition of these CPUs?
Yes.
Well, because it's not going over 9,000 yet.
Some of them are.
Actually, you're right.
Technically, it is, because the numbers are above 9,000.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're not doing a 9,000 CPU.
There we go. So they had the tie-in with Starfield. They had the tie-in with Avatar. Now they have to have the Dragon Ball tie-in.
Give me the Goku edition. Yes. Yeah, I'm there.
Yes.
You know what? You're right. You're absolutely right, Will. Absolutely right.
Imagine,
hire me. I'm available.
Imagine Dr. Lisa Su getting on stage and saying, "These CPUs go over 9,000."
Right, and then she does and the light comes out of her. That'd be amazing.
No, we need to get that person who does those amazing GIFs.
You mean
do
GIFs?
that.
Yeah.
No, GIFs.
No, GIFs is right.
No, you mean GIFs? Yeah. Let me look up this GIF.
Yeah. I saw a giraffe at the zoo the other day too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go have a gin and tonic.
I love
the night after I love
my giraffics. So this one, that famous one, is not her exploding in flames, Kamehameha style, but could be put in that style. Oh crap! And I just
shut it
so
down.
Good.
There we go. Shut down the whole podcast.
Amazing.
I don't know. Yeah. What did I do? I lost my. Okay.
You went over 9,000. That's what happened.
The moon just exploded. I'm sorry.
Recently closed. There we go. Sorry. I gotta.
God.
Bring my notes back up. Technical difficulty.
Chat is going wild with GIF versus GIF.
Oh, did we do that?
It's amazing.
I just know that the Millennium Falcon could blow up the original NCC 1701. It's no question. They have proton torpedoes. No,
I mean that one's easy. Yeah, I wouldn't argue.
They have shields and phasers. As Star Wars.
The one's faster. Yeah. Anyway, over 9,000. We'll see. We'll reach out. What is it? Just everyone should tweet at Dr. Lisa Sue right now.
Yeah.
And say, why are you not having a Dragon Ball version of this?
Don't do that.
Yeah. No, please don't. And if you do,
the full nerd.
Tell him you came from Steve at Gamers Nexus.
Oh, there we
the
go.
Full
nerd.
Steve taking the heat.
Yeah, poor Steve.
You know what?
Thanks,
though?
Steve.
We love Steve.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? Well, you know what's not going over 9,000 is RDNA 4. It looks like they're probably going to call it RX 8000. If they were to continue to go off of past naming schemes, but who knows? Who knows?
Anything's possible.
Anything is possible. This one. So I linked to an article by Digital Trends. There's not a lot of information out here around RDNA 4. A lot of rumors, a lot of kind of conjecture, but yeah. I think the main thing a lot of people have talked about was that is AMD abandoning a 4090 5090 killer. Do you think that's? I mean, we've talked about this plenty. Brad, what do you think? Do you think AMD really needs to have the highest end to compete?
No, I think it helps. It definitely helps for Halo marketing, if you want to call it that. But realistically, aside from data scientists and game developers and stuff, I don't think many gamers nevertheless buy a 4090. And I think a 5090 is going to be even more expensive. And it's just unrealistic to expect companies like AMD and Intel to keep up with that. And I don't think it's super productive for the PC gaming space either. So I'm not entirely sad by that. I will say, being the wet blanket that I am, wet farts, wet blankets.
Oh man, wow!
It's just a little damp episode of the
wetness
show
over here.
Oh,
these are very much rumored specs. I would take all of these with a big grain of salt. I don't necessarily trust all the sources that I see. Some sources are very good. Some sources aren't so good. Not all of them in here are ones I would rate as top tier. But where is it? If it does, one of the rumors is that it will stick to GDDR6 modules instead of moving to GDDR7, which NVIDIA is rumored to.
Mm-hmm.
And if that winds up being the case, that's an indication that these could be targeting more entry to mid-range, like 500 and under chips rather than attacking the high end. But these, there could be a skew we don't know yet. We've heard dire predictions and overhyped predictions, especially about Radeon for whatever reason, before every launch before. Like, don't get too wrapped up in this. Like, big punches of salt, y'all.
Also, well, the other nice thing is I'm looking on Newegg right now, U.S. pricing, of course, because that's where we're at. And you can get a 7900 XTX for as low as $912. That's a XFX Speedster Merc 310 edition. So, I mean, that is a pretty damn good GPU.
Yeah.
So,
I'm surprised it's not a little bit cheaper than that, honestly. Like, I would have expected that to go for closer to $850 these days. But.
Well, and the XT, the non-XTX, looks like 700. Nope, 690 looks to be the lowest one, and that one is a ASRock Phantom Gaming. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing when you shoot for the high end, if you're not able to hit it, then you have some problems. So, I don't know, but who is it? Davina, friend of the show, Davina said bragging rights. I mean, it's nice to say, hey, you know what? Like we can go for the high end too.
AMD would do it if they could. Like every single bit of their Ryzen marketing this is the fastest gaming processor in the world. This is the fastest processor at encoding this one specific Blender test run into this one. Like they love being world's first on anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if they could, they would. But I think it's counterproductive to try to chase.
I think that's reasonable. That's absolutely reasonable take. I think the problem though is that Davina's not wrong in the sense that like it's about your perception of like strength in the market too. And for worse, I won't say for better, for worse, because it's just for worse. The general perception is that if you're not able to put out the fastest hardware, then your stuff isn't as good down the stack, which I don't think is true. But I think people kind of absorb that as a subconscious message. So unfortunately, it puts AMD in kind of an awkward position where I think, or any company where if they like Intel, like if you wanted to be the most kick ass at like really giving value in the mid range or the former mid range, like that would be amazing for them. That would be actually amazing for like people actually at home looking to spend their money, but it's not going to win a lot of brownie points in like word of mouth, like, you know, word of mouth and like how people recommend things. And it's because it doesn't have that veneer to it. I think it can make it harder for a company to get their products, even as good as they are, to get that attention. You know what I mean?
For me, I would much rather see AMD invest in DevRel and outreach to get FSR into more games and to help people with driver problems as they're building their games. Because like there is a perception that there's some driver issues on the AMD side sometimes. And it's a real thing. Like NVIDIA spends a ton of money on DevRel rather than chase these high-end, like admittedly 4090 is probably a really lovely margin part. But, you know, if they're not going to beat 5090, then I would rather them spend those resources in that time building out that infrastructure so that they can help people get their games running better on AMD. Because, I mean, NVIDIA is this big chunk of the PC enthusiast market, but the entire rest of the market is AMD, and that work will benefit everyone.
Right? Yeah, that's definitely something to point out because, I mean, AMD is winning in the handheld space. AMD is winning in the console space. You know, they're having to then fight also on desktop PC and on laptop. Like they're kind of having to, you know, hit everything. So yeah.
Well, if you're AMD, you can tell a story that to PC people that's like, hey, look, NVIDIA's over here. They don't care about you guys anymore. They're just looking at AI and they're building all these high end cards for researchers and CUDA people and AI people. Why don't you come over here? We got you. But then if the games don't run great, then that story all falls apart when you buy your AMD card. So they got to get the games running great, and it has to be the day one releases, and it has to be the old stuff. It has to be soup to nuts across the board, and that requires a lot of work and effort. So.
Yeah.
I think the 7900 XTX was pretty close to a 4090 competitor for strict gaming. I know people talk like the 4090 blew it out the water, and it was better, but it wasn't nights and day better like people seem to make it out to be. Personally, I don't think the issue, at least this generation for AMD, was that they didn't have a 4090 competitor is what people thought. I think it's that they are chasing NVIDIA's prices. I think their basic marketing strategy has been, okay, let NVIDIA launch first. Cool, we're going to be roughly in the same ballpark, $50 to $100 cheaper, more expensive, depending on where our gaming benchmarks lie. Whereas, you know, most of the PC gamers that I know out there are like, NVIDIA's out of their damn mind with these prices on these cards. How are they trying to charge $1,200 for a 4080?
Yeah.
And then AMD comes out and says, okay, we're only going to charge $1,000. I think if they come out and say, okay, we're focusing on gamers, like we're not going with GDR7 because we're not translating machine learning AI tasks on stuff like this. This is a card made for gaming. You know, it's $200 cheaper, comparable performance to what you would get with an NVIDIA card. I think that would be a winning message, much more so than saying, hey, I have a 5090 competitor.
But isn't that what they've always done, though? And they've always kind of like had a hard time, like, you know, eating into NVIDIA?
Well,
yes.
This generation, they also had a gap. They had a feature gap because there was a lot of DLSS adoption early on. FSR 3.1 launched. It was bad, frankly. And so as a result, we didn't see like if you wanted upsampling, which was really important with the ray tracing stuff, which also AMD had some performance problems on early on. Like if you wanted to play ray traced games, if you want to play Cyberpunk, let's be real, there were two games. If you want to play Cyberpunk at a high resolution with all the bells and whistles turned on, you kind of had to do it on NVIDIA hardware because without DLSS, you didn't have a way to play that. And I think they're changing that story, but now they have to do the legwork and get that support in games and spend the time and money to make that happen.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. It's a tough spot, but I also don't think AMD's in a bad position either. They're just having to fight a lot of fights, and they're, you know, doing good in a lot of ways. But yeah, I don't know. I personally don't care that they are able to, if they do come out and are able to focus on something other than just the high end. Yeah. I don't feel like it feels like a loss in my mind. Okay. Yeah.
My biggest question for all these things, I guess, is going to wrap in the next one too, because I'm really curious to see how many of these we're actually going to see this year. Like, this is still a big question mark. Are we going to see these things in the fall? Are we going to see them next year? Like, I don't think there's any, like, I don't have a firm insight on that, even though I know people in the industry.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of urgency right now, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it does really wrap into the next one. So NVIDIA RTX 5000, do we think NVIDIA feels a lot of urgency to get out Blackwell at this point? I mean, they're making money hand over fist, in other stuff going on. Obviously they do want to sell more product on the desktop. I don't believe that they're, foregoing PC gamers and going to completely ignore desktop usage, but also they're probably not having to worry too much to rush. I don't know. What do you think, Brad?
I think NVIDIA got here by ruthless efficiency and execution. And I think that is still with the gaming team, even if the AI is getting all the headlines right now. I think that's baked into the core of NVIDIA. And I think if they have a 5090 ready to go, that'll come out and just smash whatever's out here now to smash a 4090, they would run that as soon as they're able to, as early as possible this year.
So you think this year?
I think it's likely this year. Yeah, for at least a couple of the top end parts.
So then to go back to AMD, if you're saying the cadence is usually, hey, let NVIDIA come out and then we come out and try to counter against it, then by that way you think AMD will also come out this year?
I guess that kind of, we're tying all the rumors together now, but yeah. I guess that kind of depends, because if AMD's not bothering launching at the high end, they wouldn't really have an urgent need to try to react to the 5090 launch. But if they knew a 5090 was launching at $2,500, they could be like, hey, we have our new RDNA 4 parts out and they top out at $500. Let's show you how good they are.
No, there's no way they're going to go to $500.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or whatever gamesmanship they want to do,
Yeah.
But I would personally, I think they should launch with the 1440p card first. 1440p entry level 4K, right around $500. Like, to me, that's the spot that is underserved this generation.
Yeah. Well, but also, do they have to do that around NVIDIA? Like, do they have to try to steal some thunder and be like, hey, you know what? We're going to let NVIDIA own the high end over there and we're going to have our own announcement not tied to it?
No, it doesn't necessarily have to go hand in hand. It historically has, just for competitive reasons, I think. But, yeah, it's all going to depend on what they're trying to do. AMD has been really, really, really good at executing its roadmap the last 5 to 8 years, but I have more faith in NVIDIA being able to put out a product this year than AMD possibly launching a new graphics generation this year. And if AMD does, I think NVIDIA would be right on its heels.
But I mean, remember, estimated pricing for the Blackwell GPUs that they sell into AI servers, it's like 35 or 40K per.
Yeah.
Versus only 1,500 or 2K for the
or
desktop
2,500 even if it was 2,500, that's still
yeah. But I mean, they're estimating they're going to sell 500,000 this year, which means if they skim the top 1% off that been the best for GPUs, we're only looking at like 5,000 cards in the market. So there's no reason for them. There's no reason for them to release this as long as 4090s are still in the channel and selling until somebody else releases something. So they're going to sit and wait.
Well, I mean, the 4090 thing has been rocky though, with like the tariffs and the whole the stuff with China and having a separate SKU over there. I mean, there's definitely, like, there's been times where 4090s have actually not been in the channel anymore.
That's true.
It was kind of hard to buy them. So I think they're back, right? Is that I guess I haven't checked recently.
I mean, that's the other way you can read the tea leaves, right?
Yeah. So let's see what a 4090 goes for right now on Newegg.com. RTX 4090. This
kind of ties into the whole, what do we see this year? I think the gist that I'm getting so far, I hope I'm wrong, is I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of paper launches this year. Like, we'll see Arrow Lake come out, get announced in November. Well, we might see some of these GPUs get announced later in the year. Radeon might come earlier, who knows? NVIDIA might come earlier, who knows? But I have a feeling we will see a lot of products announced this year that don't actually start shipping until sometime next year. Because if NVIDIA is like, hey, here's a 5090, it costs $2,500, you know, and you all of a sudden 4090s start going for $1,500, you know, they go back to their MSRP and sell out instantly, then the announcement itself helps them clear out space.
Yeah. On Newegg right now, the lowest is a little quick sale going on. It's a gigabyte version of RTX 4090, and it is $1,764. So $164 over the Founders Edition, but I don't know how that compares to the MSRP for that card specifically. So it says,
well, if that's the cheapest one, it means the cheapest one period is over the MSRP. So they're still freaking expensive.
Yeah, well, but there's MSRP for the Founders Edition is different than MSRP for AIB cards.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. But usually 2 years later in a card's lifespan, you'd see it start to drift down.
True. Yeah. So these have not drifted down that much. So. Okay. Well.
Yeah.
But it looks like, I mean, they seem to be in the channel. There's multiple versions of the 4090 that you can get. Anyway, so there is a leak. I linked to a video cards article that had taken some information from a tweet from Kapit7 Kimmy about the leaked Blackwell configurations. There's 5 parts with different configurations, but really, I mean, the change to GDDR7 is one of them. The fact that they're claiming that, you know, maybe a 33% increase at the high end from a 4090 to a 5090 based off the SM count and the wider bus width moving up from 256 to 512, right? No, I'm sorry. Moving up from 384 to 512. So, I mean, it looks like maybe on the high end from 4090 to 5090 is a big jump, but maybe the rest of the stack is, we'll see.
But I mean, the thing you have to look at is what do you need more perf on desktop for over a 4090? Are you running 5K monitors?
Right.
Like you can
or AI. Yeah, I mean, I bet a lot of people who have 4090s also do a lot of AI work.
If you're doing home training for your AI, yes, absolutely. Yep. Download the Llama 3 and going crazy at home. Absolutely. But for games, your 4090 is going to be fine. Like we don't need a 5090 for games right now.
Yeah. Well, what about 8K? What if they come out and say, "Hey, true 8K gaming,
8K 360, here we go."
Oh wait, they already did that.
The 4090 was the first 8K graphics card according to NVIDIA. You're good to go.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Send me home with an 8K monitor. I'll test it and let you know how it goes.
Yeah, there you go. So I don't know. These are very much grains of salt. NVIDIA. I mean, I talked to them at Computex, and they were like, "Hey, I was able to ask that question to Jensen directly, and he was like, I can't wait to talk to you about it when that time comes."
Sounds right.
Yeah. Other than that, no other actual hard news. I mean, that is definitely close to the chest.
Yeah.
Did you follow up and say, when is that?
I was not able to provide follow-up questions at that Q&A. No one was.
As someone who has lived through several of these graphics cards hype cycles at this point, generational upgrades, I will say that now is an exciting time to be following rumors because you'll see them coming out left and right. But it's also a very dangerous time to be watching rumors because a lot of people, these aren't real. They just make things up and try to get their 60 seconds on the internet. And what a lot of these will take rumors, like, for example, say, hey, AMD is only going to do mid-range parts this year. Someone else will sit there and think about it and be like, what does this mean for the memory configuration? What does this mean for the die counts? And put out another rumor that seems like it would tie into that when actually it's all BS. I've seen stuff like that building off each other in the past. A lot of the times you start to see this stuff because, yes, they are genuine leaks. So just, I'm the anti-rumor guy. Now that we're talking about all these rumors and I've spent an hour talking about them, I want to say, don't believe anything until it's officially announced. Yes, if you're excited, if you're a fanboy, if you watch it like you watch the Lakers and you're like, oh man, I can't believe that, the 5090 is rumored to have GDDR7 with the 400 and whatever bit bus. Do that, be excited. Don't put your heart in it until you know it's true.
I disagree with something Brad said there. Nobody actually watches the Lakers. So.
Whoops. Oh man. And I keep hitting the wrong buttons here. Somebody in the chat was saying, yeah, sure. You might not need a 5090 or even a 4090 for gaming, but that doesn't stop people from buying it. Sure. And to our earlier point, maybe the fact that NVIDIA can come out and be like, hey, check out our 5090, and it just smokes literally anything else on the market is enough for them to just have a nice showpiece, to say, hey, the fastest gaming GPU you can get right now.
Yeah, the 5090 demo is going to be a dual. It's going to be, they're going to do that same setup that they had the dual 3080s or 3090s for a few years ago, where they were playing 8K games in the lobby at NVIDIA, and they're going to do it with a single card that's probably running on a laptop or something ridiculous. Who knows? Yeah, it'll be great. Everybody's gonna be excited. We're gonna be thrilled. Bigger bar better, right?
Bigger bar better. Yeah.
Indeed.
Bigger GPU better. Do we actually expect GPU sizes to get bigger?
I'm telling you,
hope not.
In another few years, we're just gonna put the GPU in the case, and we're gonna put the CPU and the memory inside the GPU. It's just that's where we're going.
Maybe. Okay. All right. Well, any more rumors? That was kind of the breaking it down between the big three. Any other rumors we want to talk about? In the PC sphere.
There's a lot of interesting stuff happening in storage, but it seems it's hard. I don't know enough about that to discern whether that's the traditional 5 years out technology of massively stacked flash memory for SSDs, or if that's an actual real thing that's going to ship in the not too distant future.
PCIe 7 got spec'd out.
Oh,
so
that's one better.
Yeah,
than 6.
Bigger bar better.
Yeah.
No, nothing else. No. All right. Cool.
There is a rumor that I have to leave in 12 minutes.
Okay. There you go.
Rumor has it. Yeah.
I don't think that's a rumor. That we can take that with a lot of salt. No, less salt. Wait,
less salt.
Why do you? I don't know.
You can be salty about it. It's fine.
I'm salty. Let's switch over to Q&A. If you want to get your questions in now at PCWorld, or if you want to get them in because you watched or listened later, there's a link to our Discord over in the description. We got some fine folks over there, and I will put a couple of these questions together. The first one is from friend of the show, Sneaky. Asks, is it likely that Windows 11 will push more enthusiasts to Linux once Windows 10 becomes expired? I feel like we talk about that. It always feels like the Linux people are like, hey, this is the inflection point. This is when people are finally going to jump to Linux.
The Linux people, right?
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know if Sneaky is a Linux person, but it always does feel like, there is a subset of like, oh, this is the time that we're going to switch over to Linux.
Moment.
Yeah.
This is the moment. We're going to get all the people coming in our like wide open doors.
Yeah, let's here we go. Accept them with open arms. Here we go.
I think 2025 is the year of Linux. Maybe 2026 is the year of Linux.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
hashtag wait for Linux.
Yeah.
Is anybody planning on switching to Linux here?
No.
Okay.
Switching?
It's much easier to make Windows 11 good.
Or not using Windows anymore. Maybe that's a better way to say it.
Here's the thing that's the bummer though. Like it very well could be. This is where I think being open and decentralized kind of hurts Linux, because Linux, regardless of the distribution that you look at, but especially if you look at the more mainstream distros, like all the complaints that you have in your head, what Linux used to be is 95% not true anymore. If you just want to open a browser, do your browser stuff, open LibreOffice, do like they are great day-to-day computers to use. If you have a weird headset or something, it might freak out when you plug it in. But if you're just looking for a basic, straightforward productivity PC or something hardcore you can tinker with yourself, I think they're great. But I don't think anybody is ever going to switch to Linux. They'll just keep running unpatched Windows 10, and they'll eventually buy it.
Yeah, I would say actually the real answer is that, there's going to be more people running unpatched Windows 10.
Yes.
I mean,
here's the thing, though. Like, I think that, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but the thing is that people are creatures of habit. So asking someone to move to an unfamiliar operating system, even if it doesn't have the headaches that it used to, just having things that are like not quite in the same spot or having to like go through a different menu system can be really disconcerting. I mean, I have written editorials for PCWorld because like they changed something in a context menu in Windows because it threw off like 20 years of muscle memory and it was driving me up the wall. Do you know what I mean? And like asking someone to like wholesale move to from like one house where they can walk around blindly in the dark to a house they don't know, like you can learn it. I mean, most people can, but most people won't make that effort. They'll just stay with what they've got unpatched.
I think that the changes that Microsoft made to Windows 11 are bad too, Elena. You can just say it out loud. It's fine.
Thank you.
But the thing that I used to do an open source podcast, right? And the thing that happens with big open source projects is that they're worse than the competing consumer software, like paid consumer software for a long time. And then all of a sudden, like more people come, more developers are working on it, All of a sudden there's usually a tipping point. And like sometimes that happens really early in the software's life cycle. With OBS, we saw that like 4 years into the life of OBS, right? But with other things, with Blender, it's taken 15 years. And we're seeing that stuff happening with Blender right now. I think like I've joked for years about the year of Linux on the desktop. I think actually with the work that Valve's done with Proton and the stuff that's happening with Flatpaks and all that, we're literally closer than we ever have been. There's distros that behave just like Windows for all intents and purposes. And like you don't have to use LibreOffice anymore if you don't want to. You can download Live 365 and use Microsoft Office on Windows, and it just works. So I think the gate is somebody productizing and shipping laptops that ship one of these versions of Linux that behaves just like Windows and saying, hey, it's $100 cheaper because we don't have to pay Microsoft tax anymore. Go ahead and do your stuff. And I think like, I don't think it's as out of the question as it was 5 years ago. I think the work Valve did with Proton and getting games working on these platforms is the most important thing that's happening there.
I do feel like
I agree.
I do feel like if anyone's susceptible, it's people who just use PCs for gaming. Like if you're like, I think now more than ever somebody could load up Hollow ISO or something on a rig, Bazite, and just literally just be like, hey, you know what? I just use this for gaming, or maybe some light web browser kind of stuff, and like could get away with it. Yeah, I feel where it breaks down is more like work kind of stuff. Like for me, like I'm never gonna switch to Linux. Just the things that I use are Windows based. I mean I would switch to Mac quicker than I would switch to Linux, and there's no chance in hell I'm switching to Mac. So
I forgot to add that to the poll.
Switch to Mac. Yeah, there you go.
It really depends on the personalities too. Like I couldn't switch my mom. Like she gets so thrown, even if like something tiny is different within Windows. But my dad, I could totally do it. He's just like, how does this system work? And he'll poke around, he'll like get the layout of it, and he'll be fine. Cause he's like, oh, these things are analogous. I just need to like memorize these differences. It's fine. So I'm not saying it's like a hard no. I know I have a friend who's like IT security type person. He has his parents, I think, on POP, because all they use is just a little bit of web browsing and they don't really care about the interface. I don't think they ever memorized it enough that it would throw them. But yeah, as a general principle, I don't think most people will switch. So it's kind of just dependent on circumstances.
Yeah. Well, and not to mention, like the vast majority of PC users are on laptop, and probably laptops that are provided to them for work or school or something. So really Chrome is, a bigger part of that equation. People maybe risking going to Mac. I mean, a lot of laptop people, a lot of OEMs we talk to are always thinking about like, oh man, we really don't want people to go over to Mac. I've never heard a laptop OEM be like, oh man, I'm really scared people are going to switch to Linux. So
if people were going to abandon ship on Windows, it would have been Windows 8. And that didn't happen. So
Linux was a lot worse back then, though.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
A friend of the show, Ziv, aka Count Noctua. No more Mr. Brown. I liked when you were Mr. Brown. That was fun.
Mr. Brown.
Yeah. Any review or build plans in the new Noctua NH-D15G2. I don't know that model off the top of my head, so I need to search it with a Google machine.
That's the new flagship that just launched this week, I believe.
The first thing that came up when I typed NH.
Oh, is this their new dual tower cooler?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I've used that in a number of builds. I don't know the differences between this version and the old version.
This is what was in other Brad 2's build, right?
Yes. Well, not this one, but the original
G
one. Yeah. Yes, I would 100% love to get this in. No plans. Do we have any plans on the website? We don't really review tower coolers.
We covered the news, but we don't have plans to review tower coolers.
Yeah.
We've looked into it. Like, it's not out of apathy. It's a major pain to try to do right.
Mm-hmm. They're touting next-gen performance, challenging conditions with higher heat loads, several degrees lower temperatures, and therefore offering a thermal headroom that enables higher turbo clock speeds. So it's probably just a better version.
Still a long-awaited new not to a flagship.
Yeah, well, it definitely makes news when it comes out. I no plans, but I would love to check it out. I'm sure we will have future builds with it. Let's get to maybe a couple more questions. I will say, going back to the Linux thing, or do you need to pop out? What?
No, I'm going to in a minute, but a Noctua tower like that might be a cool thing to test out new Ryzen 9000 parts on to see how it compares against a water cooler. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, and I get to use the offset brackets for the first time in my build recently.
Yeah,
so
I'm offset brackets pretty exciting.
Yeah.
7 millimeters to the left, or maybe right. I can't remember.
Yeah. One of those up, down, left, right.
It's all relative.
It's all
Which
relative.
way you put the motherboard in the case.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Where was the question?
That's called a derailing.
Yeah, oh yes, yeah. Good job. You did it. You derailed me. Wow. Okay, I lost
Questions.
it. Questions seeking answers. Wait, no, that's for you.
Yeah, that's we turn Q's into A's every the fourth Sunday of every month.
Okay. Pyrocumulus, I feel like we answered this one, but I did not mark it as answered. Pyrocumulus asked a little bit ago, I've seen a few PCIe cards recently with combined devices on them to use up slots, the full configuration of by 8 or by 16. An example is Asus's GPU that had the M.2 NVMe drive on it. There are other examples as well. They're asking, what other combinations do you think would be neat? First, I will answer by saying, and I did actually talk about this with Asus because I was like, hey, how was the feedback based off of that GPU? Because I thought that was kind of an interesting combo for somebody who maybe only had 1 or 2 NVMe slots on the motherboard. Instead of getting some sort of riser card, they're looking to buy a GPU anyway, so why not get one that has an NVMe slot on it? And because it's on the GPU, it has superior cooling capabilities. I thought it was kind of a cool thing. We didn't do a ton of testing on it or anything like that. But yeah, I guess, I mean, they said, I can't remember the exact quote, so I'm not going to quote them, but it seemed like sales were what they expected. But I was surprised that there weren't more models shown off at Computex. For me, that's always an indication of like, oh, hey, wow, this configuration sold really well, so we're having more SKUs with it. Not that might not come, maybe that's just a longer lead time, but I was surprised that there were not more examples of that by Asus or any other company. So,
would it make sense to have a capture card with an SSD built in?
Yeah. Well, most capture cards don't even use full by 16 anyway.
2X,
So actually,
they use the short one.
So I would say yes, especially if you're on a full ATX system. Well, I guess it depends. It depends on how big your GPU is, right? If you need access to 2 physical 16 slots, I think that is one nice things about some capture cards is that you're able to put it in that very lower slot, and I think they that's why they probably aim for that. But if you could come out with a capture card that says, hey, you know what, you need to use a physical by 16 connector or by 8 slot, whatever. Yeah, no, I could see that. I could see that.
I don't know if it was practical or not. I was trying to think of ideas because you're like, what else would you like to see? And I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, I generally don't like stuff that's jams two things into one thing. It's usually then when one breaks, you lose both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah,
Very true.
I guess it depends on what you think could break in it.
I mean,
because I wouldn't be scared to run that GPU with the NVMe on there and worry about the GPU breaking.
Yeah,
I think it's the opposite.
Yeah, but then you're tied to that GPU forever, because if you want to keep the data that's on that NVMe, you can't swap to a new GPU unless the new ones have the NVMe slot.
Well, no, I mean, or you upgrade to a motherboard that has more slots. Yeah. Or you could just take that and
I guess
put it in an add-in card. Yeah. So
I would just be more concerned that something goes haywire and then you end up losing the data on that card.
True.
Which is not common, but that's just born of fear from, I guess, the earlier, more Wild West days when things weren't always as reliable. You know what I mean?
Well,
I do. I like the idea behind the Asus graphics card. I'm not sure I want to see it broadly adapted to other stuff too. Like, I like that they tried it, but I have to get going, so I will talk to you guys later.
See you, Brad.
Right.
Thanks,
Good
Brad.
luck. Good luck.
I would love to see more general purpose things. Like, I'd love to see, like, I've had Thunderbolt in my PC for a decade now, and I don't think I've used that once, maybe twice. So I would love to see like an internal Thunderbolt dock that I could plug in and have on that dual chamber on the back of my PC case that I could then put a bunch of NVMe SSDs in would be dope. Because like we've kind of lost, you know how you used to have like your fast SSD and your slow hard drive for like bulk storage?
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of lost that bulk storage, that hey, here's my crap drive that I'm going to use for the stuff that doesn't, for keeping the important stuff that doesn't matter about perf.
I see my drive for that is my backup drive. So if I have like another drive in there, which I had a spinning platter, a big spinning platter, I think it was like maybe 8 terabyte drive. In our production machines. But now that I moved to the small form factor, I'm not going to put that in there. So I'm going to put a SATA drive.
Yeah.
So like I feel like bulk SATA drive storage is where I'm moving to at least.
Let's talk about NASA's, Brad. Other Brad.
Man.
I just Braded you. Adam,
you just
sorry. All Sunday I did Brad here. I Brad you here today. I'm so sorry.
Starscreamer says, Brad's gone. It's time to talk rumors. Yeah, now let's buckle up. There we go.
Xbox handheld, baby.
Yeah, I
Here
did
it
see
comes.
somebody say that earlier. Xbox, no, I don't think they'll do it. I still don't think they'll do it. I don't think Microsoft's in a spot to take any big
We've
risks.
asked for it for so long. At this point, if it happens, it means that like the world is ending.
Your Xbox handheld is called a Steam Deck that you put that cloud client on.
I also don't think there will be a handheld version of Windows anytime soon either.
No, I think the closest they've ever gotten was that they released an official, if I remember right, plastic accessory where you could basically snap in an Xbox controller and then put your phone on it so that you could do like Xbox Cloud gaming to the phone.
Man, that's
the closest we're gonna get.
Did you ever use one of those?
I have one behind me.
Yeah, I used it for a little bit, and it puts so much weight on your fingers that it's like it was bad for my wrists. It turned out because I have a giant heavy metal phone. I guess. Anyway.
Do more training.
I know.
Training. Yeah, you got to beef up. Speaking of beef, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go eat
I'm
some.
hungry too.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do for
Italian beef day. Do we have Italian beefs here?
Do we?
I don't know.
We probably at the sandwich
Not
shop.
that I know,
yeah.
but yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
No more questions. We're gonna add. Gordon didn't end up popping in. So hopefully, actually, we have something special planned. I know, right? We do have something special planned for next week. I can't say it right now. Yeah, because I'm in the planning stages. So keep your fingers crossed that that something fun will happen next week. I'm excited for it.
Special fun.
Yeah. Special fun time. So I'm going to just take us out of here. Check back next week for your fix of PC Talk on the Full Nerd here on its new channel. Thank you. To listen to us on the go, subscribe to us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Pocket Casts, wherever RSS feeds point to. I believe we're there. You should be. Yeah, we should be. If we're not, let us know.
You on iHeartRadio? You got that? You got that iHeartRadio? Deezer.
That is a good question.
Those are both. I don't think either of them do podcasts.
Yeah,
anymore,
I was like, I don't think we're on those. So no, get at me if you want us on iHeartRadio, and I will not do that. But if you are over there, one of the things I would appreciate with all my heart is reviewing the podcast. That helps give us insight into what people like or not like about the show. It also helps boost that algorithm. We got to get that algorithm on her.
Why is everybody always talking to this algorithm guy?
Oh, algorithm.
Al's always screwing
Yeah.
stuff
Hey,
up.
hey, algorithm. Nice to meet you. Every time you do, Gordon yells that the bigger bar is not indeed bigger. Therefore, it is not indeed better. I want to thank Brad for hanging out. He had to leave because we're not important anymore. So take offense to that.
He was in the algorithm enhancement meeting that started at 1 p.m.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, he needed to go to the algorithm meeting.
Yeah.
But I would like to thank Elena Yee for sticking around. Thank you.
That's what I do. Happy fireworks week, everybody.
Woo! Yeah. Go ahead. Don't poke your eye out. Yep, Merca. Go insert all of the Oxford commas for me because I need them. I also want to thank Will Smith for coming in to the office and enjoying our AC here.
I live by the coast, so it's not too hot at my house. But this is not. I had to bring a jacket today.
You're lucky.
Humble brag.
Yeah, humble brag. Look at you, fancy boy. I live on the coast.
I can afford coastal real estate in California.
Look, I core out watermelons just the same as you guys. Okay, one
You don't
drill
hire
at a
someone to do
time.
it for you?
No, look, I got my guy. Okay, but no, Pacifica, not the coastal paradise that one might lead to believe.
By the way, I forgot to bring this up in the pre-show, so I'm just going to throw it in here real quick. The Steam Summer Sale going on. One of my favorite games I picked up was Aliens: Dark Descent.
That game's good.
That I actually have really been digging.
That's the tactical strategy one, right?
Yes,
it's super good.
If you're into real-time tactical squad-based strategy, the story is whatever. But yeah, being able to guide a squad around, like it feels like an Aliens game in a lot of ways that I've always wanted an Aliens game.
How many times per game does somebody say "Game over, man, game over"?
Yeah, so far not.
Okay.
That I've heard too much. I'm still pretty early on. Okay. I'm gonna have to go ask Algorithm.
I wonder if Alien Isolation, based on the best Alien franchise movie, is out. On sale too.
Probably. I liked Isolation, but I didn't love it. I don't know, for some reason it didn't stick with me as much.
There you go.
Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. And last but not least, I want to thank Willis Lai for controlling the verticals and horizontals and getting us the hell out of here.
Well, I'm no Al Gore. Thank you, Adam, by the way. So now, I don't know if AMD will have a Dragon Ball collab, but I know that my hunger level right now is over 9,000. So I'm going to get lunch. I'll take
over 9,000.
Over 9,000. We'll see you guys later. Thank you for hanging out. Bye.
Bye.